Calling to order, ladies and gentlemen. Calling to order our briefing working session for the Duncanville City Council meeting at 6:01 for June the 21st, 2022. So just a couple items of housekeeping. Take a look at your agenda. Item 5B is in Bravo. The applicant has withdrawn that particular item, so you can strike that from any consideration the topic is going. And I will also inform you as a courtesy that it is my intention, before we enter into the public hearings for item C, 5C is in Charlie, 5D is in David, 5E is in Echo, I will be calling for executive session. So that's something that any city council member has the authority and the option to do so.
And I would agree with that.
And I will be doing that, just so you're aware of that. And it's for public information as well. So letting you know, housekeeping here in city council, I will do that formally as well. Okay? 6:01.
Self-service pay.
All right. First item on our work session, briefing session, is city manager. Please discuss our consent items.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Our first consent item is item 4A. Consider a resolution approving the award of IFB number 22-0016 to Reynolds Asphalt and Construction Company for mill and overlay street improvement through the city's competitive bid process with an estimated expenditure in the amount of $365,546.60. This item awards the FY22 mill and overlay contract to the lowest responsible bidder, Reynolds Asphalt and Construction Company, through competitive bid process. The contract award amount, as I just mentioned, 4 road segments have been selected for the mill and overlay. Green Tree Lane from Greenstone to Crescent Drive, Barmead, Green Tree Place, Crescent Drive. High mix asphalt mill and overlay is a cost-effective street maintenance strategy to prolong the life of certain public streets located within the city of Duncanville. The new asphalt driving service is estimated to last for 20 years. Item 4B, consider a resolution approving the award of IFB number 22-0015 Cam Concrete Contracting Inc. for pavement replacement and curb gutter repair services through the city's competitive bid process with an estimated expenditure of $508,355. This item awards the FY22 pavement replacement and curb and gutter repair contract to Cam Construction through the competitive bid process. They were the lone bidder. 2 road segments have been selected for pavement replacement: Wheatland between Apollo and Patton, and Cockrell Hill between Daniel and Cambridge. Damaged curb and gutters in the West Park subdivision will be replaced. Damaged pavement to Apple Congoon, I can't say the word today, located at 1346 North Main will also be replaced because city water main breaks contributed to the deterioration of the pavement. The city will be reimbursed for 1/2 of the $27,690 repair cost.
Question,
Yes, sir.
City Manager. I noticed on this particular item there's a deficit of $8,355 in terms of funding. Where might that $800?
Savings. I just looked at finance to confirm before I make a statement, and my public works director, where will we get the extra from?
We do have the funding allocated in our budget. We have projects that are short, that they came in less than we budgeted, so.
Other savings.
Okay, so we'll be moving money from other projects to make up the
Yes, sir.
$8,300
Yes, sir.
deficit.
Savings in other projects.
Got it. Okay, all right, thank you.
Those will have to be done by budget amendment, and so we'll that have to come back to council as a.
Got it, okay, thank you.
Item 4C, consider a resolution approving the second contract renewal option for IFB number 20-018 pavement marking, supply and installation services with Elite Striping LLC and the estimated expenditure amount of $104,976. This item authorizes the second renewal of the contract, and the estimated expenditure, as I mentioned, was $104,000. The annual term contract is for labor, material, equipment for the removal, installation of raised pavement markings for the city on an as-need basis. Public Works is satisfied with the work performed by Pavement Marking Supply under their current contract. All right, item 4D, consider resolution approving an offer for a hotel occupancy tax grant for the FY 21-22 budget in the amount not to exceed $3,000 to the College Football Officials Developmental Conference Organization for ground transportation costs for attendees from and to the airport to the National Conference USA Football Official Development Conference Clinic held in Duncanville. I thought these were for them, so I just realized what we were saying. Okay, and he's deceased, so he no longer works for them. The College Football Official Development Camp provides the best training opportunities for aspiring college football officials in the country. The camp allows college referees to receive training that equips them with the tools needed to establish a sound foundation based on proper mechanics conducive to growth, to support the continued need for collegiate football officials. They are requested $3,000 for the Conference USA Football Development Camp. This year, our mayor actually greeted this group along the way. They're expecting 200 people, all who will be staying in other cities and counties, with 142 rooms rented for the event at the Hilton Garden Inn.
Yeah, I just want to add a comment to what the city manager stated. I was invited to greet these individuals at the Hilton Garden Center, and the room was 100% packed SR. So these are individuals coming from around the entire nation to learn how to be college football referees, officials. And while they were here for this first session in June, they utilize more than just the Duncanville Stadium. They go around because of the great breadth of the football number of coaches or referees that they have here in coaching and development. They use multiple football stadiums around the Best Southwest Partnership. And so to have them reside at the Hilton Garden Inn, and all they're seeking is transportation allowances just to get those folks to and from the airport, I think is extremely worthwhile. And to get them back for a second time, this means we're now promulgating a strong relationship with these individuals. So I just like them, and it's for what they're asking for, it's really a small amount in order to culture this relationship with this particular group. I just want to add that comment. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
I think you
Mr.
answered both my questions, but I want to be clear. This is the second time
Yes.
that we would have presented this grant?
This is the first time
No.
we've given them a grant.
They never asked for money before.
Okay.
So this is a group who's coming back a second time, and we want to keep them here and make this part of it. One of the things that I remember when my father was a referee is that they would do a number of camps and training, and so he started here and started doing bowl games, and so that has become a very wonderful field, but it's also an opportunity for us to create a connection with that group. And I think he would always go to Memphis for his training. So there are a number of camps that they do, one to train to become, but there's others that they do on an annual basis to be certified to become college.
Okay. Hopefully they work on those holding calls. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions, observations? Okay, thank you.
Item 4E, consider resolution authorizing the procurement of 2 Osage ambulances from Lone Star Emergency Group located in Houston, Texas through by board contract number 605-21 in the expenditure amount of $647,078.58 and authorizing procurement of 2 LifePak LP 15 cardiac defibrillator monitors and a 5-year maintenance agreement for the LifePak LP 15 cardiac defibrillator monitor from Stryker Corporation in the amount of $93,872.68. As many of you know, this is a major part of our organization. Both MICUs have reached the end of their 4-year frontline service, but both will remain in the fleet reserve status for an additional 4 years. The 2017 M271 was pushed back 1 year because of the delayed repair and return that took many months due to Hurricane Harvey, especially in Florida and the other places. Due to the supply chain issues, 2019 replacement is being made now, so it will remain on schedule to be moved to the reserve status in 2023. The resolution includes the MICU's cots, a cot loading system, and EKGs. The resolution passed in the last council meeting was for the approval of ARPA funds to be used to purchase this the resolution is actually the approval for the purchase, which we agreed. And one of the things that the CARES funding and the ARPA funding allowed is based on some of the lessons learned is a specialized. And so they are here if you have any questions, but I will say that our service level for our ambulances have increased, and we recognize that this is one area in which we have a great demand.
Another comment I'd like to insert here. I had an opportunity to be present in the Methodist Charlton emergency room earlier this month, not for myself. I had to administer some assistance to an individual. And while we were there for several hours, watching people go in and out through that emergency room, I observed a team. It wasn't one of our teams. It was not the city of Duncanville. It was another one of the cities coming in. They transported an individual. I'm no physician. I'm no nutritionist. My good guess would be that this individual is well pushing 350, 400 pounds. And my observation is looking at that individual and look at this EMT team saying, how did they get that individual onto that cart? How did they get that individual into the ambulance with that cart? How did they get that individual out of the ambulance onto the ground to get into the emergency room? And my thought was, past experience, going like, I certainly hope that those individuals had training in order to handle that kind of, maybe there were 4 people handling that cart, maybe there was, well, and this is what caught me, because we're looking, if you look at the list of what's being procured with these 2 ambulances, it includes the striker lift. And those are $25,000 a piece. I think the gross amount shown here, they bulked it up around $50,000. That $50,000 is a small price to pay for what we obviate in workers' comp claims for our EMTs. So looking at that dollar amount, and I think it's a very, very wise expenditure on the part of our city for these new ambulances to have that particular feature. Because really, looking at that and what they go through day in and day out, you never know what they are going to encounter. But that particular incident really brought to mind when I saw this. In fact, Mr. Harvey, I did not know until reading this in our packet that there was such a device. And then when I read that, it was like, we connected the dots. I mean, that's how it's happened. So I just wanted to insert that comment. Thanks to our fire department and new chief for that, for reincorporating that, because it's going to be a great savings and great opportunity for us to have the best available equipment. That's all I wanted to say on that particular aspect.
Concludes the consent agenda.
Okay, that concludes our consent agenda. Moving on to item number 2, briefings and presentations, funding options for fire station and other bond capital projects. Managing Director Adina Atmore will present this item. Ms. Atmore.
Good evening, Mayor and council members, City Manager. Tonight we're going to talk about the funding options that we have in order to fund the fire station. I know that last council meeting we approved the go ahead in order to fund the shortage for the fire station and some of the other bond projects. So I have with me here tonight Jason Hughes, who is our financial advisor. So when we have options like this, he helps us to explore those and figure out how we can go about managing the finances for the city. So the options for funding the shortage for the fire station and the other 2019 bond projects, if you remember that we issued some bonds in 2019 for some projects, and the fire station was one of them, and several other projects for streets and for parks. And so there's some shortages in those projects as well, but most of the shortage is in the fire station. So one of the things that we've already done is that we've used some savings from a roof replacement. We had a roof replacement of 2 buildings that we were able to save a great amount of money, and so that amounted to about $800,000. So we are using that as part of the funding for the fire station. We also have an option to use tax notes. When you use tax notes that are funded by our taxing ability, there's a maximum of 7 years that you can use in order to pay that debt back. So that's one of our options, as well as certificates of obligations. And certificates of obligation are those, they're like bonds that we can issue up to 30 years. But what we're recommending, you see, is not quite to go 30 years, but that is one of our options, and also the use of fund balance.
Could you go back to tax notes? I'm not quite
Yes,
sure I fully understand that.
Yes, sir. And what I can't answer, Jason will answer. But
Mayor, so tax notes by state law can only be amortized over 7 years. So that's one of the things, typically whenever they were set up, they were usually for smaller projects or projects to be accessed or capital to be accessed very quickly. So because of that, again, state law, you only have 7 years to repay those.
What is a tax note? How do we issue?
Oh,
it?
it's
How does it-
simply a debt obligation, so it's issued, it does not require a vote by the public, it does
Okay.
not require any kind of notice of intent like what you have with certificates of obligation. All the council has to approve are final pricing terms, so the
Right.
actual sale,
Where does the capital come from?
typically from
Well, I
banks.
should say the principal. Where's the principal come from on the note?
So it's, you sell a note, the tax note to a bank, for example, just like you'd go out and you sold your GO bonds.
So our bonds, now we're selling a tax note.
That would be exactly it. So you would sell tax notes in an amount to fund whatever amount you decided that you needed, as well as the cost of issuance to sell that note.
And those are interest-bearing notes.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, is more or less interim,
Bridge funding.
it's not, the debt term is not as long as 20-year
Sure.
bonds, so it's intermediate because it's 7 years
7
as
years
opposed
versus
to
20.
20 years for bond.
Well, of course, the trade-off is if you look at it, since you're obviously paying over 7 years as opposed to a 20-year CD or CO, beg your pardon, it's a lower interest rate, but it's a higher annual payment, right? That's really the trade-off, and as council decides whether or not to fund this, is I have some examples here, and apologies not to move forward or to jump forward, but you can see here for the tax notes to fund $3 million, that annual payment's anywhere from about $490,000 to $500,000. Okay, so that's the annual payment. The nice thing is, again, it's paid in 7 years. Your interest component, which if you look down, let's see here. So that interest component, excuse my reach, 363,000, 421,000, those are just estimates between market rates. This right-hand side is market rates plus 0.5%. So the nice thing is you're paying very little interest on that, but again, you see your annual payment is about $490,000 to $500,000. So that's the budgetary impact.
And that market rate is LIBOR? Where does that market rate come from?
That is a tax exempt, actually. So that's an estimate of tax exempt rates on a tax note. So just as kind of context, probably 3 weeks ago, about a month ago, I priced a 7-year tax note for $275. Of course, last week we saw rates go up about 0.3 to almost 0.4%. So that's 325 is what I would estimate as today's rate, and then the 375 would be with cushion, so if rates do continue to go higher.
So, I'm sorry, Ms. Hatmore, so really what's presented on the former slide, there's 4 different options, or are we talking
We're gonna go
about?
through each of them.
We're gonna go through each of them.
Right, so these are
This-
4 options presented to us to
Yes.
consider.
Yes.
I just
We're
got,
we're gonna also tell you what we recommend.
and I just got in the weeds on this one, so I'm
We're
sorry.
gonna get on all of them, so that's
Yes,
fine.
yes. And so, Jason's already explained to you, he gave us basically, 2 options for the tax notes, and one's looking at the rate based on the current market rate. So, you can take a look at what the impact to us would be for each year on our budgetary impact, where we would have to, pay the note on that. So yes, will have an impact on our budget rate. And then this is the option for COs. If you know, COs are certificates of obligation. Those are actually bonds that can be issued to the public, to the market at the current market rate. And down at the bottom, you see that the estimated market rate is about 4.20 to 4.57% right now. Okay, so we had to go back out and look at what the market is today, since we know that the feds have gone up. Okay, and certificates of obligation are eligible for projects such as this, because this is like a public safety facility, and so they are eligible to issue bonds based on these qualifications, are eligible for this project. Yes, you have a question?
Well, I'm just thinking, so with a CO, we're back into the 20-year amortization.
Yes, he's given us a 20-year amortization on these, okay? Up to $3 million, and you'll see down at the bottom, the total principal is 2.87. That's because basically these bonds were probably sold at a premium. And so when we issue them out to the market, we'll eventually with the premium come out with $3 million in order to issue, fund the project, funding on the shortages on the project. But as you can see, if you look at the annual rate, it is a lower budgetary amount for us, so that it gives you a little breathing room. But since this is a 20-year facility plus, this is an option that we have at our disposal so that it won't be so tight. 7 years, it's a shorter time frame, but there's a lot more you have to pay out in that 7 years.
But do we, just speaking as a citizen, when we take out a mortgage on a house, we attempt to pay that off as soon as possible to relieve ourselves of that debt service. Does that same kind of thought process go into a municipality in terms of getting ourselves out of debt as quickly as possible, knowing it's gonna cost more, but in the long term, we end up having better cash flow over the term of 20 years versus 7?
Sure.
So it's like getting a 15-year mortgage instead of a 30, costs us more to do it, but you get your debt services obligation is much shorter. So how does that compare? How does that service us as a municipality?
Well, I think one of the main things that you need to look at is what it's going to cost the citizens as far as tax rate, right? Obviously, 7 years, as we showed, was $490,000 to $500,000 versus $230,000 to $240,000 with the 20-year COs. So a couple of different things. So as far as the COs, we can actually go shorter if council wanted to. Just that's what we had talked about, is kind of comparing and contrasting 7 years versus 20. You could do 10 years, you can do 15 years. I mean, there's different terms. Again, the tax note just being that the max maturity is that 7 years. The other thing that we do is whenever we sell long-term debt, we put in what's called a call feature. And what that allows the city to do at its sole request or ability is to pay that debt off early. So if you did get into a situation, let's just say 10 years down the road, where tax values had gone up or sales taxes had gone up or you had some kind of available revenue, you could pay that off early.
With no penalty.
With no penalty.
Okay. So our recommendations from the city would be to use $3 million of COs to fund it with the 20 years, sort of to help us out on the cash flow with the budget. Also, as Jason talked about, the call feature will kind of help us go out there. If the market does get better, we can have some options. Fire station, at least a 20-year note, and the payment terms are more favorable. So this is one of the reasons why we're recommending going that. Any other funding shortages or contingencies, we recommend funding with a limited amount of fund balance from the general fund.
So it's more of a procedural question at this point. This is coming to the council in a briefing session.
Just want you to think about it, and then you can tell us, we can bring it back. We didn't want to pressure anybody today to make any big decisions.
That's where I'm going. It's like,
There may be more questions after you leave.
that's what I'm doing. You're reading my mind.
Yeah.
And I'm going like, you're not looking for a decision
Nope.
from us tonight. This is strictly an education for us to ponder, and at some point, we're gonna hit this again. So
Yes.
my
Next
question
week,
then,
next week
I'm
we'll
sorry,
begin.
go ahead, Greg.
Oh, just real quick, I just want to be clear, for me, all of this is specific to the fire station funding.
Fire station, and also we've included any of those shortages on the projects that Jack had presented in her bond package. We would use this money as well as any fund balance that we can. We think that it's a limited amount, but we can use that in order to help make up the difference, the shortages for those projects. The biggest shortage is for the fire station. And so we were focusing more on that, and any of the other shortages, we feel like we can make up with either excess from projects or fund balance.
But we're not aware of any other shortages.
Yes,
Yes, there are.
All right, I'm not aware of any other
I think
shortages.
we've talked.
Somewhere we've talked about that.
I think the things that we've talked about in some of our bigger things are our parks project. We also have a service center, but we're not at that number. And so I don't want to go down that road until I have a hard number, and then just know that we'll come back and have this discussion again. It would be nice if we were just building everything all at once, because we also have our park, splash park is also short. So anything that's being built is short.
But we'll have this information before we can bring it to us for a vote.
Yes.
Okay.
And no, well, let's see, let me take that back. The other projects are down the line, so
We'll have an idea what those projects could be though.
not likely, because what we approved last week was a not to exceed. And so part of what I have to do
CMAR.
is is to sign the contract, I have to identify a source. Now, one option, which is I think a simpler option, is we know that we have the funding and fund balance. However, as we decide how to ensure that we don't utilize it, that's what we don't want to do, because that is always the option, is there is fund balance available, is that what we would do is, because it's going to take some time. We've got a contract that won't take time, and so even if today you were able to vote, there's a process that Mr. Hughes is going to have to go to get us through the COs that will not correlate with being able to sign that contract.
But there is some, anytime we're dealing with market rates, we're dealing with potential higher things versus the way the economy is going right now. So
Yes, sir.
I'm presuming that y'all, with consultation, we're looking at moving pretty fast and coming to a decision. We're bringing this back to council for decision, because the longer we wait, the higher the market rate
We're coming back the next
possibly
week. But we want to give everybody a chance, and we'll send you out this information in case you have additional questions, and then if you ask me a question, I'll get it out to the entire council. But I just wanted to give you a chance to kind of, it's a lot, and new council members, this is a lot for one time.
Yeah, so Mr. Hughes, is there a possibility of going out to various financial institutions that fund these kinds of things and getting a bid and say, can you lock this in for 30 days or 60 days, like you would, like a bridge loan or something like that?
So the way that muni bonds are sold is typically they're sold on the day of with your approval, council's approval that night. So to answer your question, short answer is no, not without some kind of significant payment. You can do different.
Earnest money on the table.
Yeah, well, and quite frankly, it starts getting into derivatives and a lot of things that you don't want to get into. Yes, sir. So no, so we would go in. The one thing I would say is, let me just very quickly, as far as timing, so what we would need from council is approval of a notice of intent. That notice of intent to issue COs has 3 items. It has a not to exceed amount in it, so you obviously can't go over that. It has the day in which council would meet to approve the CO issue, and it has a general listing of the CO projects. The nice thing about that is we have to set that for a date certain, because the state requires that you have 45 days notice to your citizens from the first publication. But let's say in a worst case scenario, rates go from 4.2% to 8%. We don't have to issue the COs. So that's the nice thing. We can shut everything down. And of course, I'd be talking with staff and just going through that. But there's nothing that would lock you in. You don't get locked in, so to speak, until the night in which we actually sell the debt.
So your potential rates that you've shown us based on your expertise is where you think these things are going to go by the time we have to actually enact as a council making the decision.
That is my.
Some assurances, this is the range we're going to be in.
Well, that is the hope, yes. Now,
Yeah, I understand, yeah.
again, whenever you go back to last Monday, we saw rates move 0.3%. That's a seismic shift in the municipal bond market. So that could happen again, depending on what happens in particular with the Fed.
Mr. Coombs, did you have a question?
The 800,000 for the roof, savings from the roof repairs, so that is available?
Yes.
So that this, and we can use a combination of these options, right? I mean, you don't have to-
Yes.
It's not just one or the other, okay. So
Yes, this is, we're proposing a combination. We already know that we're gonna use the $800,000 from the roof savings. And so then the COs will be part of that option. So it's like a package deal. So we're not saying it's just one way we can close this gap. But we're also saying if we have anything else, fund balance, there is some excess fund balance that we could use in order to help us with that.
And that 3 million, so that could be the 2.2 million then.
It could be 2.2 million,
The
it
total
could be
gap
4
is
million.
3.9 million, right?
Yeah, but our shortage was
Or 5
over 3 million in shortage for the fire
What was the
station.
exact shortage, ma'am?
3.361 for the fire station alone.
And we've locked that down though.
Yes, that's locked in, we just have
We
to,
locked that down city council, last city council in terms of not to exceed. So we know
Yes,
exactly
sir.
where we are in terms of what
That's
that.
true, assuming
Yeah.
that we're able to solidify the financing quickly.
I'm sorry, the 3.6, that's the shortage?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's actually 3.361.
so what I would also say that Ms. Atmore mentioned, and so some folks were not here, is as we started this project, and even I think when I came, we knew that there was a roof project that had savings. And so when we were selecting options and looking at the initial shortfall, we'd identified, I don't think there's been an official vote to say that you want to use the roof savings, but that was our recommendation because we know that that pot was sitting there. We had other things that were initially identified to us, which were some interest rates and things like that along the way, but we're really trying to deal with the absolutes of what we know is available, because we will have some other things that we're gonna have to address, which are the service center.
So what you just said, Ms. Atwood, I'd like to get a question was, Hilltop basically come back with a menu. It may not be just one particular, it could be a combination of different financial instruments that we may go forward with, using fund balance, using tax, using COs, in terms of coming out with the most beneficial means of funding this.
That's what council's, we're really looking for some guidance on if that's what you all would like, so that we can develop it out and bring it back as an action item.
I'd like to see, putting it together in a package, like we take X number, we take X dollars from fund balance, we take X dollars on the tax note, we take X dollars on COs, and work those different iterations, and maybe 6, 8, or 10 different iterations to build that menu, so that we can see how all of this is going to be working together to our best advantage, and to the taxpayers as well.
And hopefully, some consideration will be given to matching estimated useful life from the projects with the term of the debt that's issued. I hate to go out 20 years on debt for component units at the fire station that'll last 5 years, 10 years, 15 years.
So one thing I would mind, within that CO issue in particular, 20 years, we can take assets, for example, if you have something that's only 10 years, we can amortize that over 10 years and then amortize the longer term over the full 20 years, but we can absolutely set that up.
Alrighty then.
Very good.
Any certain number of options you think would be, how many? I don't want to overwhelm us because
It's
too many.
It's far beyond our expertise to try and define that, unless Mr. Harvey, you wanted to try and find it from your experience. I can't, but I understand the financial pieces of it, but in terms of working at those pieces, I don't know.
I am one of 7.
I think one of the main items, just for me, is to know how much the city wants to put in as far as cash versus how much it wants to debt
That's the
finance.
cash balance piece.
Yeah, the
that's-
debt financing piece is relatively easy. Once I have the useful life of each, then I can kind of construct that. But it's kind of knowing what that number is that we need to fund with the debt piece, because again, we'll have to know that on the front end.
That number's kind of in the back of my mind. When we have that fund balance, how much do you want to pull from that in order to reduce debt service?
One thing too, one last thing, and then I'll stop talking. Whenever council approves that notice of intent, again, that is a maximum amount. And so I say that within the context of, from the time council approves the notice of intent till we ask for your approval of the sale is usually about 2 months. But you can still continue to use that time frame to kind of whittle down those projects, because again, remember, it is a not to exceed. So for example, if you said $3 million was in your notice of intent, and you come back, Ms. Atmore says, you know what, we only need 2.5 million, that's all we sell. And again, you have the surety, and your citizens have the surety of knowing that you're capped at the 3 million, but you can always do less than that.
Tangential to this, now my mind is gonna go out here. Until the council funds this delta, does work stop on the project and because those monies are not available?
Doesn't start, I can't issue notice to proceed unless they got money. So one of the things that they'll be doing is, do we do a reserve and do a reimbursement resolution?
Right, so this time
That's why we
factor
need an
here.
answer now, because we've actually exceeded our notice to proceed date.
Okay, and that's where I'm coming from, the time factor.
And I can't issue the
Rolls
notice to
out.
proceed without there being funding available.
Okay.
It's unconstitutional for us to do so.
No move without a dollar there.
And so one thing that we can do as part of that notice of intent, we can also wrap a reimbursement resolution in there. And so that would allow council and staff to begin, expend funds, and simply reimburse itself once we sold the COs.
Yes.
That's why I asked that question.
Or tax notes as the case
So my
may be.
request would be, I think we have a council meeting next week of council, is if we could bring back a resolution to allow us at our next meeting to use fund balance as we work through next funding mechanism. So therefore, there will be no pressure. We do have the amount in fund balance to cover. The money is not gonna go out at one time. So even though we've approved it, we're not gonna write a $7 million check to this group. So, but it at least gives us the authorization to start. And so it would then take away a little bit of pressure, as far as I'm concerned, on making sure that you are comfortable with the final decision, how we work with Jason.
The reimbursement clause is crucial then, absolutely.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I will say that, excuse me, Jason Hughes and I have been working together for 20 years, is it?
I think so, somewhere right around there, yes, sir.
We both had hair.
He still has hair.
Not much.
That's all right. But anyway, but they do a very good job. So we're in good hands.
Oh, no question, their trust of bringing us to the bond project that we had to do and following on that, bringing it together. No question of trustworthiness in terms of the hilltop security, absolutely.
Thank you.
And I'm also put a little bit more if you want, just to give you an overall picture of
What we
our
need.
There it is.
That's what you
debt.
want to see.
Okay, these are authorized but unissued bonds, which means that these are bond elections that went out. You are, citizens authorized it, and this is what we issued. So we have basically, a balance of $275,000 in bonds left out there, $1,000 for street improvements, and then $274,000 for, drainage improvements. So that's kind of how, what we have on the table right now of unissued but authorized. So we really basically have very little. So our current outstanding bonds, just to give you an overview, is we have it from the Series 2019 bond issuance. We issued $20.735 million, and outstanding amount right now to date that's outstanding, it hasn't been, principal that hasn't paid off is $18.9 million. We also had the Series 2016 general obligation refunding bonds that we refunded some issues. We issued $4.2 million. We have outstanding right now at $1.54 million. And just the details of that, we pay our debt on the 15th of February and August. And so right now there's $20.46 million of outstanding altogether as of September, end of fiscal year last year. And the bonds issued as outstanding are the 2019, and I give you what they were issued for. The 2019 was issued for a series of things: expansion of parks, streets, alleys, improvements, fire station, remodeling of the existing municipal buildings, and professional services in relationship to the projects and financing thereof. Those bonds mature on 2039, so we still got a little ways to go on those. The 2016 refunding bonds, which were used to refund the Series 2000 debt, which was used for construction of equipment, recreational facilities, which is basically the field house, put it all in one word. So we purchased that facility from the CEDC by taking the refunding from the Series 2000 sales tax refund revenue bonds. So this bond issue was just basically about refunding issues and putting lower paying debt out there. The debt is currently maturing in 2025, which is not too far off. This is our aggregate debt schedule, as you can see. So you can see all of it in kind of one picture, what years we have to pay the principal and the interest in the total debt service for us. And this was just to give you some information, not for you to make a decision, but this is our current debt picture as it stands today.
Okay, very good, thank you. Yes,
This is just manager, I wanted to make sure what date we were coming back with. Is it a special meeting we're having, or?
I would like to, and working with them and seeing how quickly we can pull it together. I think something that if we can do, number one, is to agree that, bring something back to say that we'll use our fund balance to cover the first part. I would like to look firmly at what are all of our outstanding so that we can come up with a flow solution. One of the challenges that we seem to have, and a lot of cities seem to have, is that when we go out for bonds, we go out for that point in time. But the reality behind it, if we have a bond election in 2014, it might be 16, 17, 18 or longer before it happens, and prices change. And so In this case, I want to give you an idea of a worst-case scenario and a not to exceed, so that we're not having this conversation again. It's not saying that we're gonna sell it, but I really wanna make sure that I know what my parks projects and what my service center project should possibly cost if we are able to move forward as quickly as possible. We've already seen that the service center has come in over what we anticipated. There is also the discussion that was held by council at an earlier time to include our water and our AMI system. Those are also things that I want to make sure that as we're in budget season, we have this conversation so that we can just figure out where we want to go. And that's why with our budget workshop, I'd like to have that discussion a little bit more there too.
Good. Any other comments, thoughts? All right, very good, thank you. No, well, going back to Mr. McBurnett's
Is the
question.
meeting, ma'am?
We have a budget workshop on the 27th of next week, Monday.
And not due, and not due.
Oh, wow, really? Okay. Was gonna swear you in.
Oh.
Well, that makes a difference, doesn't it?
See, it's a carrot and a stick.
Okay, I'll change my schedule.
Oh, we're talking about that today.
All right, yeah, I'll be here.
Okay.
We can zoom you.
There's no time on here. Okay.
6.
Do you need a different time? We haven't set it down, so but I think that's on the agenda to talk about today. No, okay. We'll work with another time.
Let's put it, I will go to my other obligation as soon as I can after our special meeting. So the special meeting will be that issue plus this, and anything else?
Let us talk, can I just?
Yeah,
This is a big one, so I can't, let me talk. This is our first budget workshop, our second budget workshop.
I gotta set a priority. If I gotta miss the other, I will miss the other and take this in priority. Yeah.
We'll talk.
Okay.
I'll get with you tomorrow.
Anybody else as far as that day?
Well, I already let you know,
Via Zoom.
I'll get Jason to.
Okay.
Okay, sorry.
No. We good stuff.
Some here is important.
Gotta do what we gotta do. All right, moving on. 2B, city vehicles presentation, Mr. Lowe.
Today, there's a few topics of the equipment services that I'm gonna be going over. One is vehicle purchases. In FY20, we ordered 9 vehicles, and we were only able to receive 3. Due to COVID, some of the manufacturers were converting over to build the
Ventilators.
yes, the ventilators. So, they kind of shut down production. Then the computer chip shortages contributed to that. And FY21, we had 6 vehicles ordered. We received 4 vehicles. One was an F-150, 2 Tahoes that had been in an accidents in the fire engine. The remaining vehicles, same issue with the chips, could not fulfill those orders. One of the things, most of the vehicles that they could not fulfill were diesel engines. Diesel engines require more chips than your gasoline engine. There's more computers that control the engine, the emissions. Takes a lot more. FY22, to date, we've ordered 13 vehicles, Tahoes, Explorers, and Expedition. We have some more vehicles that will be hopefully at the next council meeting in July that I forget the date on that, whatever that second scheduled meeting would be. Yeah, the 19th. And here are some of the vehicles to be ordered this year. The ones that were previously ordered and undelivered will be reordered. Because of the shortage, the dealers would not, could not hold to the previous price because pricing has just gone way out of hand. So that's one of the reasons for having a reorder.
Just answered that question I had.
Yeah. And in FY23, we're gonna have, assuming budget's approved for the fleet rotation, 13 vehicles. Funding sources for the purchases, how we fund these, we have a fleet rotation fund. A lot of y'all probably already know. Years ago, the council decided to set up this fund and they put a couple $1 million in an account. They purchased vehicles, and then over the lifespan of each individual vehicle, it's divided over those years and has an inflationary factor included in it. And that much money is taken out of whichever department's budget to go back into that fleet rotation fund. So when the next purchase needs to be available, the money is there, it's worked very well for us. We have looked at leasing versus purchasing. And this is a lease vehicle option on an F-350, and the numbers are kind of old. It's based on some units that we have had, and we knew what the value was at the end. With leasing, you have a percentage or an interest rate. I think this was based on 4.5% interest, and the lifespan of the F-350 was 10 years. The blue shows the lease. There are certain payments over the years with the total cost at the end. And the purchase, the red, you outright buy it, and then at the end of it, we're able to get more money out of it when we auction it off, which reduces that total value.
Oh, so that 5350 below the x-axis is the auction,
Right.
Auction sale price.
Right.
Oh,
And your maintenance cost would be the same on either vehicle.
right.
And here's what it was with an F-150. Basically the same thing, and the purchase ended up being a total cost of over $4,000 less.
Now, Mr. Lowe, back up. You just said, okay, for a privately owned vehicle, for a POV, if you lease that vehicle, those maintenance costs are absorbed by the owner of the vehicle for a certain amount of time, like a year or 2 years. But you said no matter what, whether it's lease or buy, all maintenance costs are incumbent on the city.
Right.
Regardless.
Right.
Okay, just make sure.
Right. Okay, then we have electric vehicle options, which was brought up a few council meetings ago, I believe. Most of the city vehicles, I don't believe would be a good fit for electric vehicles. Your police cars, ambulances, fire trucks, or service trucks. One, police cars are used all the time, they'll never get a full charge. Same with ambulances, fire trucks. Our service trucks, they can be called in at any time to respond to an emergency. Or in case of snow or ice, they'd be out all the time. They wouldn't be able to get a full charge. Some vehicles that could, maybe your code vehicles or neighborhood services vehicles, maybe utility billing, but they do get
Health
calls.
inspector, that kind of thing.
Right, right. One big cost would be the electric charging station. We'd have to get a grant for that. The cost is just above what we would like to spend.
Those grants are available through the RTC.
There are grants available, yes.
Interesting that we're covering this because about 2 RTC meetings ago, they awarded a city, I don't remember what city it was, they replaced X number of their vehicles with electric, and they got recognition and some kind of big plaque and some kind of and I'm like, oh, what about us? And so there's a possibility of us converting to some electric, but we still need to set which ones would do that and not necessarily seek recognition from the RTC or the federal government getting a plaque on the wall.
Right. And I don't remember if it was a grant. I don't remember if it was a grant situation where the public had to have access to it, or if that was just certain policies or what.
Most of those grants apply to putting those charging stations at City Hall, not in commercial locations around the city. It's like, you want to charge your vehicle? Come to City Hall, get yourself a popsicle or your vehicle charged. But this is where those grants are being applied, that I saw.
Let's see. According to Consumer Reports, through the 2019 and 2020 model years, they had significantly higher problems than internal combustion engine vehicles. In 2021, it improved a little bit, but I'm not sure that we're quite there. Maybe on some vehicles we want to take a chance on. Other alternative fuel vehicles, one is natural gas, and there have been grants to convert to natural gas as well. But the grants that I've seen only cover a part of the cost. We would have to fund the rest of the cost, and many of them you have to get rid of your vehicles before you had intended to. Like, we had a vehicle that was on the fleet rotation plan, and it was on year 5 out of 7. You know, we'd be spending that extra money to go ahead and replace it rather than waiting the full life cycle then replacing it. The grant would not cover for vehicles that were at the replacement term on the rotation fund.
Isn't there a CNG filling station at Ledbetter and Duncanville Road? Somewhere around there?
I'm not sure.
Which isn't that far from us in terms of saying we must, or we have to build this fueling station. We could use that one that's within, 2 miles of the city.
But one of the problems is the length of time that it takes to fill
I
up.
understand.
I think the ISD has a natural gas fueling station, slow fill. So, because we did look at that several years ago, and then the fueling time just kind of prohibitive.
Okay.
Another option is propane, which I like better than natural gas. It's easier. You just get a propane tank with a pump. One of the, it burns cleaner, but you also, the cons, you have reduced engine power because it doesn't burn as efficiently as gasoline. The tanks, you have to have a larger tank, and you can only fill it 80% capacity due to fluctuation in the temperatures. Years ago, when I was at the Texas Turnpike Authority, we had big 80-gallon tanks of propane in the back. They were biofuel, go from gasoline to propane, and there was a lot of trouble back then. I know today it's much better, but a dedicated unit to strictly propane is better than a biofuel. Hybrid or electric vehicles. Usually with your hybrid electric vehicles, you're looking at a top trim level on your vehicle for that option to be available, which is $10,000, $12,000 more than your regular gasoline vehicle. The batteries, You know, you've got rare earth batteries. The batteries are expensive. Ideally, you would want to get rid of the vehicle before the batteries expire. You got disposal costs, replacement costs of batteries. That's just, which is another problem you would have with the electric vehicles as well. Vehicle service and repair process. We've established a service schedule for our vehicles based on history of those vehicles. They may come in every month, every 2 months, 3 months, depending on the vehicle. Like our police cars, we bring in once a month. And it's not that they would need an oil change every month. We try to get problems or identify problems before they get too bad. So it may just be an inspection of the vehicle. The repair, the operators usually notify us if there's a repair. The police department has a program in place where they can run up a vehicle, and the fire department does as well. The other city users, they would email myself or the equipment services supervisor and let us know what it is, and we'd work out a schedule with them for repair. Questions?
One question, city manager, I've heard some possible discussion about our fire department participating in a joint procurement of a blocking vehicle.
Yes.
Where is that?
That's in negotiations. I think that we were going to talk jointly as we start our budget discussions. I know that DeSoto, one of the cities, is already moving forward with a separate, Cedar Hill is moving forward with the purchase. We were trying to look about that joint. So we will have more discussions. We'll also bring it up during the budget conversation with us. And as we've already, for those who don't know, the blocking vehicle is basically when you see a car or anything happening on the interstate, we use a fire truck, a very $1 million fire truck. And it would make a lot more sense that we had something a little less expensive, but a lot safer because of the safety of the folks working there. And so we were looking at having a joint blocking vehicle so that when they're called out for accidents or things on the interstate, they will have that. And so that will be a discussion we will be having with the budget, but it's also a joint purchase. And so I've got to get to my other group. So we have a number of expenses that are joint that we'll be talking about, including our 911 when we get to the budget discussion.
All right, any other questions for Mr. Lowe? Comments? Okay, we are basically dead on the nose for time. Council, I would recommend that we take executive session at the end of our meeting. We simply don't have time to take it between now and 7 o'clock. So we'll do that. Moving, so if you see on your agenda executive session item number 1, please we will move that to the end of our city council meeting. Please move into the city council chambers as soon as possible. Thank you.
Time.
Apple time?
7.
7. Calling to order the meeting of our Duncanville City Council meeting at 7:19 on the 21st of June, 2022. I have asked Mr. Jeremy Kuntz to give us an invocation, so please rise.
Please bow with me. Our Father in heaven, we approach you at this time with humility in our hearts, recognizing you as the great God and creator of heaven and earth. We thank you, Father, at this time for this blessing and this privilege that you've given us to once again come together as your servants, as servants to one another, and as servants to this community. We thank you, Father, for those who are with us this evening, those who are professionals, and we thank you for our staff. We thank you, Father, for these servants who represent the great people of this community. And we thank you, Father, for those citizens who are with us this evening who've come to voice their concerns and share their thoughts and their ideas about the direction of this city. We ask, Father, as we prepare to enter into these discussions, that you help us to conduct ourselves in a civil manner, that you help us to be respectful of one another and have compassion toward one another. And we ask, Father, that you be with us as we prepare to make these decisions, that we do so with sincere hearts, and that we are driven by a concern to make this city as best as it can be. We pray, Father, on our safety, and we ask that you be with us throughout the rest of this evening. We ask all these things in your Son's name. Amen.
Before we get into reports on item 1 of the agenda, just a couple of items of housekeeping. Item number 2, which is the mayor recognizing a city champion, we are moving that item to our meeting of July the 19th. We are also moving the executive session in item number 1 for the city council. We're moving that to the end of our city council meeting tonight. And on agenda item number 5B is in Bravo. The applicant has withdrawn that application. We will not be covering item 5B. So that's all we have for that. Okay? I have some brief comments for the mayor's report. First of all, if you travel up and down Highway 67, you will see the construction of the bases for the monuments, the gateway monuments coming into our city. They're well under construction, well underway, so those are going to be fully constructed in probably another couple of months. And also, since we received green funding from TxDOT for the plants, natural vegetation to go around that, if you travel southbound on 67, you'll see a bunch of yellow, green, and red flags. Those are individual native plants that are going to be planted. So if you're going up and down 67, just take a moment to see that. You'll actually see the work in progress. Next thing I would like to cover, and I'm sure that all of you are aware of the event that occurred in our city last week. I have received several comments. I know each of our council members in various ways have received several comments from citizens, not only here in the city of Duncanville, but around the state, and from other individuals, that thanking the city of Duncanville for doing the right thing. And with that, to recognize the individuals responsible, our first responders, for understanding and doing things. I have said in various forums that there is a vast difference between react and respond. We do not call our firefighters and our police officers first reactors. We call them first responders. We respond to a situation, a contingency, when we have prepared for it. When you sit down and plan for it, you examine it and you say, what can go wrong? What can go right? And when that particular event occurs, rather than reacting, because you train and you program yourself to do the right thing when that particular event occurs, you respond. And that's exactly what our city did. Our city not only did it in where the event occurred, but our city responded extremely well in interacting with the media, if you've seen any of those things. I believe each of us on the city council, and I hope each of you here tonight, will be proud of what the city of Duncanville has done and its demonstration of handling a most difficult situation in a most professional manner. difficult as it was done correctly. And in response to that, I would like each of you to join me, if you will, not necessarily mandatory. I want to stand and give an ovation to our responders. Forgive me for breaking up, sometimes I just do. You just got to indulge me, but look around the room, you see them. We have our fire chiefs here, we have our police chiefs, we have our law enforcement officers. They're always here, always available. We thank you. Not only in that respect, but in the interaction with the media. Mr. Alex Hamby, our public information officer, worked, I'm not going to tell you, I can't gauge how many hours he worked, but I guarantee you it wasn't 18 hours a day in coming up with the publications, coming up with the announcements, coming up with the remarks in order for this city to interface with national media. Alex, thank you, sir. We are a proud team of what we have. That's about all I can handle for mayor's remarks. Any other remarks from City Council? Thank you very much. City Manager, Mr. Robert Brown, I have asked City Manager Aretha Farrell-Benavides to assist me. She has stepped out in that assistance, and coming in is Mr. Robert Brown, our Assistant City Manager. Mr. Brown, would you take City Manager's report, please?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. City Manager's report. Join us Monday, July 4th, for this year's Independence Day celebration. The parade will begin at 9 a.m. The route starts at Wheatland Road and Freeman Street. Heads west and turn right on North Main Street and ends at North Main Street and Freeman Street. The celebration will begin at 6 p.m. with a family-friendly event featuring David Whiteman Band, delicious food, bounce houses, face painters, and much more. Wristbands are required for entry and can be picked up at the Recreation Center. Limit 5 per person. Must be 18 years of age or older. The fireworks show will begin at 9:30 p.m. Keep Duncanville Beautiful has scheduled its next cleanup on Saturday, July the 16th at the Ladd property. It will be from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. with cleanup supplies provided on site. The Duncanville Public Library holds its summer reading kickoff on Saturday, June the 4th. The event was very successful with over 600 people attending. Everyone enjoyed the games, crafts, and free treats that were provided. The fire department responded to 143 calls for service in the past 7 days, which included 91 EMS calls, 10 motor vehicle accidents, and 2 grass fires. The fire department would like to remind everyone to please remember to stay hydrated and limit your outdoor activity to cooler hours of the day during the heat of the summer. Stay safe. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. As I stated, we are moving item 2, proclamations presentations, to our next City Council meeting on July 19th. Moving on to item 3, citizens input. Pursuant to section 551.007 of the Texas Government Code, any member of the public has the opportunity to address the City Council concerning any matter of public business or any posted agenda item. However, the act prohibits the City Council from deliberating any issues not on the public agenda, and such non-agenda issues may refer to city staff for research and any future action. All persons addressing are subject to City Council rules and limitations. And the City of Duncanville limitation during citizen comment period is 2 minutes, and that 2 minutes is timed right there on our lectern, and the City Secretary monitors that as well. We would appreciate any comments being made to adhere to that 2-minute rule. To speak during citizen comments via Zoom, you must have registered with the City Secretary before 4 p.m. today. City Secretary, have we any registered? That's a negative, so all citizen comments are here in person. There have been numerous citizen comments that have been submitted to the city, to me, for reading during this time. And what we were going through is putting those citizen comments into some category as defined by the item the individual wishes to speak from. And it appeared that all those big, pretty large stack were items on 5B, 5C, D, and E, which are the SUPs for short-term rentals. So what our normal practice is, when an item it comes forward for a citizen comment and it refers to an item on the agenda for a public hearing, rather than taking those citizen comments in the 2-minute section for citizen comments, we take those comments and we put them into the public hearings portion of that particular agenda item. So when we get to those public hearings, that's when those citizen comments will be brought forward. And that's what the city manager and the staff are doing right now, is taking those comments that have been submitted and categorizing them by agenda item. So if you'll bear with us, that's what they're doing for us right now. But I do have some citizen comments that do not relate to those. So the first one is from Tedra Williams, 866 Astaire. Ms. Williams, I do have your written comments, but you wish to speak as well, so please do so. And you have a 2-minute limitation. I have already stated your address, but if you would do it for the record as well, thank you.
866 Astaire Avenue, Teddy Williams. I've spoken before this body before pertaining to safety in the Hollywood Park area, dating back from May of 2020 through June of 2022. The noise, the speeding, etc., as well as how it impacts the health of others, especially my health. So there are 2 documents that the VA has submitted on my behalf as it pertains to the loud blasting music from cars that continue to go unenforced in the area. There are solutions that we've also provided as well. One of those solutions happens to be potentially a police decoy car at Pyburn Park. That might deter some of the things that we're seeing. Signage that you had promised, Mayor, in October of 2020 that still isn't there. There's a speed pedometer on Barrymore that really and truly should be moved to where the actual incidents are occurring, which is along the area of Astaire Avenue, directly in front of Pyburn Park, adjacent to Avenue of the Stars, so that you can actually track. And then the third thing would be a noise ordinance study, which doesn't cost any money as long as we partner with some of the local universities. The noise ordinance has no bearing on this whatsoever. At this point, it is a disturbance of the peace and a health issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Next item I have has been submitted for my reading. And this is from Patricia Ebert, 115 South Greenstone Lane, 75116. Please have the mayor or his designate read my public comment. Why are Duncanville Independent School District, DISD, announcements on the City of Duncanville property and media? Bullet 1, DISD signs on City Hall property. Bullet 2, DISD pre-K enrollment on today's city LED sign at the corner of Main and Wheatland. Bullet 3, DISD May 17 salary notice on latest news on city website. Thank you. Next item I have is to have the mayor read this, and this is from Misty Bain, 102 Walnut Street, Duncanville, 75116. Please have the mayor read my comment at the meeting. I'm opposed to the proposed short-term rentals in residential neighborhoods. I believe we need to write a stronger ordinance to regulate these short-term rentals. The current ordinance has a lot of flaws. Dallas is currently experiencing a myriad of issues with short-term rentals. We need to write a more concise ordinance before approving more short-term rentals in our city. The current ordinance is too vague. We need more concise measurements relative to violations, the remedies for such violations. Furthermore, we have not clearly defined what a bedroom actually is in our ordinance. Partitioning off space to create more so-called bedrooms should not be permitted. In regard to some of these proposed short-term rentals, it appears that some are operating as a boarding house, which we do not allow in our city. Before approving any more of these, I believe you really need to write a better ordinance. You may ask, why am I reading this instead of what I previously stated? Because this is not pertaining to a particular agenda item, whereas the other comments do.
These are generals too. They're also general. You didn't have the number. The greens are read, the reds, pinks are no.
Okay. Next item I have is this individual wishes to speak, Erica Browning. Please state your name and address for the record.
Erica Browning, 442 East Cherry Street. First, I would like to congratulate Mayor Gordon and ask that God would bless you in your continued service to our city.
Thank you.
There are several SUP requests on the agenda tonight for short-term rentals, and I've given you this information so that you can refer to it. I don't have an opinion for or against any of these particular SUPs. I would like to say that in general, I'm in favor of allowing property owners to use their properties as they see fit. I believe in limited government intrusion into our lives. However, I do think that there should be basic guidelines set up to help ensure that these properties are not a nuisance, such as requiring local management of said properties. There are a few other thoughts that I have regarding short-term rentals in Duncanville. First of all is just a question why all of a sudden we have so many vacationers coming to Duncanville that need short-term rentals. I'm not quite sure how that's coming about. And why do we have so many SUPs? By definition, it's a special use permit, and it seems like we need to, as Misty Baines said, really look at our ordinances, and it would save the Planning and Zoning Board a lot of trouble. I also urge you to take a look at the length of time these properties are being rented and by whom. Some applicants are stating that rooms are being rented out for 1 to 3 months or longer with indefinite leases. And this is more a definition of a boarding house, which is prohibited in our code. Another consideration, and I want to state very emphatically that this is not a reflection on the applicant's or the property owner's character, as I don't know any of them personally. Just merely something to consider is that human trafficking is a huge and growing problem. Hotel staff are trained to notice the signs of an individual in distress or the patterns of nefarious persons involved in the slave trade. How are absent short-term rental owners going to be aware if their properties are used for this purpose? Finally, I would like to urge you to consider that an overabundance of these properties reduces opportunities for people to actually own properties that live in Duncanville and contribute to our community. Thank you.
Thank you. I have several items here that the individuals wish me to read and put into the record. To whom this may concern, my name is Alyssa Grimberg, and my current address is 935 Green Rock Drive, Duncanville. This comment can be read during the June 21st City Council meeting for Ruth and Stu Carlson at 7 p.m. I have been a Canadian registered nurse for 4 years and recently decided to take on the adventure of travel nursing across the states. The first stop has been Dallas, Texas. I was nervous coming to a city where I did not know anyone or even have in mind a place to stay. By chance, maybe in a miracle, finding their clean and lovely place advertised on Airbnb near my hospital was a breath of fresh air that I was desperately searching for. They mentioned in their comments their intentionality of making their home a heaven of people encountering radical hospitality, and radical it has been. Since day one, Ruth has gone above and beyond to make their Airbnb feel like home, home sweet home. She also set a standard that was what attracted me to the place, since she advertised it to be tidy, clean, and quiet, 2 things a nurse desires after a shift. More than anything, she has gone about her way to make guests feel like they're more than just a random encounter, but the guests truly have the capacity to feel like family. This has been the warmest welcome I have had to Duncanville, Texas by far. I hope others get to experience the same through Ruth's hospitable vision of what Airbnb can be. It truly is experiences like this that unite and knit a community together. Thank you so much for reading this. Alyssa Grimberg. This is from Viviana Gomez Posey. Her address is 1924 Honey Laurel Drive, Conroe, Texas, 77304. Mayor can read my comment. I do not need a Zoom meeting. A few weeks ago, I was looking for accommodation for my daughter's summer internship in DeSoto, Texas. After finding this location, I contacted Mrs. Ruth with questions regarding her property, the safety of the surroundings, and information about the other guests currently living on the property. I was pleased to receive such prompt replies, and I could tell that Mrs. Ruth is a very responsible host. In addition, she made me feel confident that my daughter would be safe while staying at her house. I value the fact that she was willing to get to know her guest, my daughter, and assume she does so with everyone that stays at her place. Next comment. This is from Judith Reed, 935 Green Rock Drive, Duncanville, 75137. I would like this comment to be read aloud by the mayor at the June 21st City Council meeting. This letter is concerning the petition for approval of specific use permit to allow for the use of short-term rental 822 Sherrill, 350 Linkley, and 103 Capri in the city of Duncanville, Dallas County, Texas. Stuart Carlson, owner, along with his wife Ruth, is my brother, and as such, I am very familiar with his properties and have met many of his guests who have stayed there. Without exception, the guests I have met have been grateful for the safe, comfortable place to stay that Stuart and Ruth's Airbnb has offered them. There have been no rowdy parties and no parking issues. Furthermore, until March 25th of this year, I had been caring 24/7 for 4.5 years for my aging mother who has dementia, and I was near the end of my rope physically and emotionally. Stuart and Ruth joyfully invited our mother to live with them and took on her care. They would have not been able to do this without their Airbnb business, as they would have both been needed to be working full-time. Their Airbnb allowed them to embrace Mom and give her the excellent care she deserves while giving me the rest I need. Stuart and Ruth are interested in each and every guest who comes into their home. Some become like family. I believe that people who stay with Stuart and Ruth are supremely blessed by the experience. I have no doubt that Duncanville is a better city because of the impact that Stuart and Ruth have on their guests. I respectfully request they be granted a specific use permit to allow for short-term rental at each of their properties in Duncanville, Texas. Next item is from Bryce Daniels. Attached is my comment that I would like the mayor to read at tonight's meeting. Bryce Daniels, his address is 238 Kimberly Hill, Palmer, Texas, 75132. To whom it may concern, my name is Bryce Daniels, and I write today in support of Ruth and Stuart Carlson in regard to all of their properties on the agenda today. I have known the Carlsons for approximately 3 years, and the circumstances of our meeting were surely like many others. I had never used Airbnb before and frankly did not enjoy living with others. However, I needed inexpensive housing for a few months before starting a new job. Ruth and Stuart had impeccable reviews, and the wild streak in me decided to give Airbnb a try. On every encounter, the Carlsons were gracious, caring, warm, and inspiring. So much so that for all intents and purposes, they are my family. I grew up not knowing what it meant to be unconditionally loved, and the Carlson family, which extends far beyond Ruth and Stuart, has shown that to me. Just last month, I underwent reconstructive chest surgery in Arizona, and it was the Carlson family who visited me, prayed for me, and loved me for the worst days of a grueling recovery. When I am feeling down, they are the people I turn to first for enlightened perspective on how to make the best of life. There is no doubt that the Carlsons would be incredible people. They are even without Airbnb. In fact, I'd argue their Airbnb business is only as successful as it is because the Carlsons are wonderful people, but it should be understood just how much Airbnb gives the Carlsons a platform to touch others' lives. There's no doubt in my mind that I would not be the person I am today without Ruth, Stuart, and the whole family. But I would have met them only if their business was as it was, unhindered, influenced by a desire to provide great community, and inspired by God. I don't see a reason why I should be considered special among any of the thousands of guests Ruth and Stuart have the potential to host. Everyone should have the opportunity I did to have his or her life changed by the Carlsons. And my fear is that if they are disallowed to continue use of their properties for Airbnb, that many others will go by without truly experiencing fruitful community. There's just another couple of sentences. That's sufficient. Thank you.
The next item is from Carolyn Rosendahl, 710 Markwood Drive, Duncanville. I would like the mayor to read my comment. I support the Carlsons' request to use their properties as Airbnbs. I believe that they are providing a safe place for people who require temporary residence in our beautiful city of Duncanville, which has a homey, small-town feel, but is convenient to Dallas, where many traveling nurses, interns, etc. work. The Carlsons are keeping their properties beautiful for their guests. The guests are contributing to the Duncanville economy by shopping or buying food/groceries/gas, and both guests and hosts are accountable to the Airbnb rating system. Wouldn't it be nice if you knew the renters next door to you had a 5-star rating, instead of taking the risk of having neighbors that had no investment in the property and therefore neglected it and let their yard grow into a jungle? The Carlsons are also providing work for house cleaners, gardeners, and repairmen, and so they are also contributing to the community and economy as well. Airbnb can be a positive thing for this community if you allow the Carlsons and other hardworking citizens of Duncanville to continue. Next comment is from Jesse Bonnet, resident 616 Lacewood Drive, Dallas, Texas, 75224. I would like the mayor to read my comments at the meeting. I'm a home health/aide caregiver for Stu Carlson's mother, who lives with her son at 822 Sherrill Boulevard. Lydia Carlson is my client for memory care in their home. It's a great setting. It's quiet and peaceful. It's quiet and peaceful environment. I enjoy working here. The guests that are in the house are respectful and kind and quiet. A very pleasant environment. My income depends on the efforts of Stuart and Ruth to create income from his mom's house at Linkley through Airbnb. Please be kind to Lydia Carlson and to me. If you have any questions, please contact me at 972-916-8987. Next item is from Peter D'Amato, 211 North Casa Grande Circle, Duncanville, 75116. Please read my comments during the public comment time. For the past 4 years, we've been a part of the Airbnb network, offering a place in our home for about 650 travelers from far and wide, representing over 15 countries and including from around the country. Our guests have stayed with us for various reasons, from just passing through, on the way to another destination, for service such as medical personnel, engineers, training, visiting friends, attending seminars, and many other reasons. Our Airbnb has given us an opportunity to serve others, make new friends, parens, some of whom we maintain contact with, close parens, teach our children, parens, one whom was born with a genetic condition, close parens, how to operate a family business, and to earn an income to help with family expenses. The focus of our Airbnb is one guest only per listing unit. We don't permit guests or visitors, and our house rules are strictly enforced and not allowing noise, parties, smoking, or drug use. Parking is only permitted in designated spaces in our driveway. There is no street parking. We've had perfect compliance with our house rules. People who stay realize that our particular Airbnb is for a quiet, no nonsense stay. My wife has earned her 5-star super host rating, one guest at a time, through hard work, diligence to detail, and care for the guest. The City of Champions is made up of people who make a difference in serving guests in venues like Airbnb, along with other small business owners and officials who serve the best interests of all its citizens. Boarding room, rental, and now Airbnb has a long history which has enabled families to thrive and meet needs while meeting the needs of others. Why put an end or stifle a business like Airbnb or short-term rentals because of few bad operators who may be absentee or subletting the property? I believe there are already laws on the books for nuisance situations that can be enforced. Airbnb will also end problematic hosts, and they do in fact warn if the guest is questionable. Airbnb vets both guests and hosts. In order for Airbnb to be successful, it must listen to hosts, guests, and communities. The next item is from Nathaniel Rosendahl, 6615 Nyman Drive, Dallas, Texas, 75236. To be ready by Mayor Gordon. This letter is in support for all of Stu and Ruth Carlson's properties. For many years now, Stu and Ruth have opened their homes and welcomed people who need clean, safe, and caring rooms for a short stay. There are spaces where they don't need to worry about the cost or hassle of hotels, utility bills, or furnishings. Many short-term guests have become close long-term friends and are part of our Duncanville community. They live here and work here and support local businesses. These are not party houses. This is a welcoming family where Stu and Ruth care for people and properties with their whole hearts. A vote against Stu and Ruth is a vote against two longtime citizens of Duncanville who are actively improving life for others. It is a vote against affordable living, against small business, against investing in Duncanville neighborhoods, against Stu and Ruth's residents who call Duncanville home. It is also a message to other homeowners that are safe, affordable, community-driven living is not welcome in Duncanville, and that night nurses, business travelers, local interns, and anyone else who is in search of this living option should know to look at other cities. Instead, in these tough economic times. A vote for Stu and Ruth communicates that City Council agrees that beneficial STR activity will be welcomed here, especially for those with a long track record of success. Criticism that suggests that bad things might happen in the future after approval is undermining the effectiveness of the city's STR process, as registration is designed to be revoked for properties that cause problems. Criticism that relates to parking is an issue that is not unique to S2ERs and should be handled with a citywide initiative that fairly applies to and fixes parking problems for everyone. Criticism should be screened for people who actually live in the Carlson's neighborhoods and have experience with the properties in question, to filter out widespread community prejudice that has unfairly associated Stu and Ruth with party houses. Thank you for your time. Nate Rosendahl.
Speak, but they just said they support it.
What is it?
They have to neighborhood, but they said they don't want to speak.
Next card I have is from Dexter Hall, 1023 Stewart, I believe. The topic is theft neighborhood. The individual does not, I'm sorry. Oh, yes, sir. So you do wish to speak.
Good afternoon. My name is Dexter Hall, 1023 Stewart Avenue. That's in Hollywood Park. We have a serious problem over there. I have had 2 vehicles stolen, 2 trucks stolen, and a trailer. And each time I had about $10,000 worth of equipment in each truck. And we have no patrols after 12 o'clock, between 12 and 4, each time my vehicle was stolen. I've been here for 30 years. I don't feel safe anymore since I moved in 30 years ago, and the patrolling is not well after 12 o'clock. We also have other issues as far as shooting in the neighborhood after 12. Other things is going on. I don't know, but I don't feel safe. I had my catalytic converter cut off this past year. I had 1 truck stolen in 2019. I had another one stolen in March 8th of this year. This truck has violation in Houston, Texas. They're still driving it up and down the tollway. I have called the city of Duncanville. I have called the state. I have called DOT, and no one has been able to help me yet. And I really don't know what to do. I really don't want to move out of Duncanville, but I'm feeling like I am not safe here. And I need y'all help. Either we need more patrolling in Hollywood Park or we need cameras. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hall, I just want to reiterate, maybe your first time with us, that I'd stated at the outset that we as a council are not permitted to discuss items during the citizen comment period, but notes have been taken and it's for the record. Thank you. The card I have is from Brittany Hall. I'm not sure. One item is marked I do want to speak. The other one is marked I do not want to speak. Which is it? You do want to speak? Okay, all right, thank you.
I know there's a lot of confusion.
Okay, yeah, and give us your name and address for the record, please.
Okay. My name is Brittany Hall. My address is 1023 Stewart Avenue, and that is in Hollywood Park. That was my dad. I wanted to speak on the short-term rentals. I, for one, am pro. I am for it. I feel like it gives an opportunity to young entrepreneurs like myself. One day my residents might be that if I have a say in it. I believe that it gives outside money to come into our neighborhoods, brings different people that might want to experience what Duncanville is like. They get to experience on a short-term, time period. For one, speaking from a personal level, I am a frontline worker, and I have worked very hard during this pandemic, and I have actually done travel contracts, and Airbnb was one of the ways that I was able to do it. I'm not sure if y'all are, know about things like that, but we have to pay rent in addition to our home residence and where we travel to. And Airbnb is an affordable way that we do that while being comfortable, while still fighting, to save our communities. So that is all I have for today. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Kerber, just for information, I'm just marking your comment here as it in general support of STR. So we have it for the record. Thank you.
That's somebody else. That's Evelyn Kirby. Ms. Kirby?
Ms. Kirby, yes.
That's Ms. Kirby. Which one's Ms. Kirby?
In the blue and white top.
Nope, that was a different, that's Ms. Hall. Ms. Kirby's someone else.
No?
Nope, that was Ms. Hall. That was Brittany Hall. Ms. Kirby's.
Oh, okay. Hold on.
We're good, I gotta go.
Okay, that was Brittany Hall.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Ms. Kirby?
Okay. Got her here. Okay, so now, Evelyn Kirby. Thank you. And this says, do not, but will you do?
I'm sorry?
Your card says you do not wish to speak, but you do.
I don't need to, I was gonna speak on one of them, I didn't know if this was the one. I
Which-
can, do you wanna wait?
Can you tell us which one so I can put it
Just
down?
give us the address of the one you wanted to speak on.
I'm actually not sure which one I put the address on. Any of the three of for the Carlson, Ruth Carlson, so really I can speak now if you want.
But yeah,
Get it out of the way.
I have taken general comments combining all the properties of the Carlson. So if you just want to speak in support of
Yeah.
any of the properties without identifying a specific one, that would be acceptable at this time.
Okay.
So name and address for the record, please.
My name is Evelyn Kirby and my address is 710 Markwood Drive. I actually clean for the Carlson, so I clean all three houses, so that's why I'm in support of all of them. They're a good support for me for my financial stability. But also I didn't know a lot about Airbnb until I met the Carlsons, and it's been really cool to meet all these people and see the benefit that it is, like all of these letters that have already stated. So getting to work in it and see the benefit that it is to the community, definitely in support of what they're doing.
Thank you. The final card I have is from Stephen Landtroop. There's no subject item, so I'm not sure, but Mr. Landtroop, you're here? General support, or do you wish to take 2 minutes, Mr. Landtroop? I will mark your card as general support, STR.
My name is Stephen Landtroop. I live at 1315 Heather Glen Street here in Duncanville.
I am here today to support my brother and sister in Christ, the Carlsons, who are also my friends. I have known them for the better part of 20 years now. Having gone to the same church and been in the same small groups together, I've come to know the Carlsons' hearts pretty well. Both growing up in the mission field, one in South America, the other in Africa, they're still huge promoters and supporters of Ministry of Mercy Orphanage in Nigeria through Partners in Joy, a ministry that takes in and takes care of babies who are not able to be raised by their own families. So it's very hard to understand why anyone would be against what Stu and Ruth are doing. To me, it's hard to understand that. They have found an excellent fit between a group of very nice people who either can't afford or don't want to pay out of pocket the traditional home or apartment rent, and they're kind of on the long term of the short-term rental people, if that's a thing. I don't know how to call that, but they are simply providing a comfortable living space for this group, as well as trying to supplement their retirement income and help Stu's mother, who has dementia, which was previously mentioned. To me, it's a win-win. And there's no way that Stu and Ruth are going to let any disturbances of any kind in any of their homes, which are all within 5 minutes of each other. They're on top of it. It's not like some corporation that's running guests through an unsupervised empty house from another state. We were told in the May Planning and Zoning meeting in a statement by the chairwoman, I believe, that the city of Duncanville is not trying to run legitimate Airbnbs off and other short-term rentals out of the city. They just want to get rid of the bad apples who are not properly supervising their guests. It's also said that there have not been any complaints about our short-term rental properties. That if there were no complaints, we should be confident about continuing what we're doing here as Airbnb hosts. I am also one in a different way than the Carlsons. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. That concludes all of the citizen comments that I've received. As I said at the outset, with the exclusion of those that are identifying very specific agenda items, and we're categorizing those, and we'll address those during the public hearing time. Thank you. Sorry. Yes, that's what I was saying. That's what I was saying. We've taken the citizen comments that have been identified as to the particular agenda item, and we put those together, and we will address each of those as each agenda item comes forward. Yes, absolutely. Yes. Moving on to item number 4, the consent agenda item. City Secretary, please read the consent agenda items.
Item 4A, consider a resolution approving the award of IFB number 22-0016 to Reynolds Asphalt and Construction Company for Mill and Overlay Street improvements through the city's competitive bid process with an estimated expenditure amount of $365,846.60. 4B, consider a resolution approving the award of IFB number 22-0015 to Camcrete Contracting, Inc. for pavement replacement and curb and gutter repair services through the city's competitive bid process with an estimated expenditure amount of $508,355. 4C, consider a resolution approving the second contract renewal option for IFB number 20-018 pavement marking, supply, and installation services with Elite Striping LLC in the estimated expenditure amount of $104,976. 4D, consider a resolution approving an offer of a hotel occupancy tax grant for FY 21-22 budget in the amount not to exceed $3,000 to the College Football Officials Development Conference Organization for ground transportation costs for attendees from and to the airport to the National Conference USA Football Official Developmental Conference Clinic held in Duncanville. 4E, consider a resolution authorizing the procurement of 2 Osage ambulances from Lone Star Emergency Group LTD located in Houston, Texas through the buy board contract number 605-21 in the expenditure amount of $647,078.58 and authorizing procurement of 2 LifePak LP-15 cardiac defibrillator monitors and a 5-year maintenance agreement for the LifePak LP-15 cardiac defibrillators/monitors from Stryker Corporation in the amount of $93,872.68.
Mayor, I move we approve.
We have a motion to approve from Mr. Contreras, a second from Mr. McBurnett. Council, please vote. Thank you. Consent items unanimously approved. Moving on to item 5 on the agenda, items for individual consideration. So we will open the public hearing, as is our practice here in the city of Duncanville. The staff member responsible for the item will give us a presentation on the item. We will then open it to the public hearing, and during the public hearing, I will give specific instruction when we get to that portion in time. Once we close the public hearing, the council is then open to ask questions of either the applicant and or the presenter from the staff himself. So first we have item 5A, conduct a public hearing, parens 2022-12, for consideration and action regarding the request of Eric and Joanna Banda, applicant representing Monty Anderson of Main Commons, Duncanville, owner to include a specific use permit, quotes, SUP for self-serve pet grooming shop on Main Commons, Block 3, Lot 1, AACS 0.617, more commonly known as 100 North Main Street, Duncanville, Dallas County, Texas. Mr. Jeremy Tennant, Director of Neighborhood Services. Mr. Tennant, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, City Council. This is at 100 North Main Street here in Duncanville. This is a variance request, as mentioned before, to allow a serve pet groom shop to be used at the petition address. The Flom location is downtown district, and the zoning district is downtown district, also known as General Main Street. In our code of ordinances, per section 7.02, land use terms, the animal services will know outside pens is defined as a facility entirely indoors in which dogs, cats, or other domestic animals are accepted for medical treatment, grooming, bathing, boarding, or other treatment which payment is served. This particular request, of course, is for grooming. Section 3.03 basically requires an SUP for said use within this district. Henceforth, it's went before planning and zoning, and now it's before you this evening for consideration. Just to kind of give you an idea of where the property is located. It's located at the northeast corner of Main and Center Street, as depicted upon the map in front of you. Just to kind of give you a little zoom in on where it's located at, and also a picture of what it looks like from the intersection of Main and Center. And as I mentioned before, it's in the downtown district. It's surrounded by downtown district. And as you see, there are some other SUPs that have been approved to the north and to the south of it, as depicted in this illustration before you. This is a copy of the actual site plan, excuse me, the floor plan itself for your reference. And just again to give you an idea of what has occurred within the 200 feet buffer, we've sent 10 notifications out, 0 replied in favor, 1 replied not in favor. And on the 23rd of May, this particular request was recommended by approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission. Just want to throw some things out to you as well, some provisos if considered, to take into consideration for our approval. There's a list of 7 here, where it basically talks about how there should be no dog or any animals left there overnight between 9:30 and 7, because again, it's for grooming, so it's specified that it is for such. The floor and walls of the grooming operations shall be covered in impervious, smooth, cleanable surface to ensure that it's clean and not to harbor any contaminants. All animal hair and other deplorable issues will be removed from the floors daily to, of course, ensure that there's no bacteria or potential for disease. The premises shall be clean of insects and rodent infestations, shall also be maintained and operated in a nuisance-free manner, and of course ensure that everything is sanitized, of course ensure that there is cleanliness in the site, and of course if any of these incidents are broken, there's a potential for it to be revoked for your consideration. Any questions?
We'll come back to you
Yes, sir.
Once we close the public hearing, Mr. Tennant. Thank you very much. Mr. Contreras, did you have a question at this point, or maybe we proceed to public hearing?
I'll wait.
Okay, all right. All right, we're going to open the public hearing. And as I stated, what the policies that we have in our city for this is that 10 minutes are permitted in the aggregate for those in favor and for those opposed. So that doesn't mean each individual gets to speak for 10 minutes. The public hearing will allow 10 minutes for anybody in favor. If there are several individuals here that are in favor or in the aggregate who are opposed, bond together, find out if there's a chairperson, or you can take the 10 minutes, however number of those people that there are, but we will close each section of the public hearing for and opposed at a separate time. Okay? So we're going to open the public hearing, and this will be the public hearing in favor of item 5A on the agenda. The timestamp on that, City Secretary, is 8:11. So all those present that wish to speak in favor of this particular agenda item, please come forward. Seeing none, we will close this portion of the public hearing at a proper time, sir. Thank you. Any of those individuals present who wish to speak in opposition to this item, please come forward. Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion to close the public hearing. We have a motion to close the public hearing by Mayor Pro Tem Harvey.
Second.
Second by Councilmember McBurnett. Council, understand, citizens, what we're doing is we're closing the public hearing. That's all we're doing at this point in terms of the vote. Council, please vote. Thank you. Public hearing on this item 5A is closed. Timestamp 8:12. Mr. Tennant.
Yes,
noting that this is a unique item, a self-serve pet grooming facility. One thing noting in terms of the special ordinances or the special, I say, conditions that P&Z put on this is maintenance of the facility. So in this is self-serve, is the applicant or the owner or the entrepreneur of this particular facility going to be cleaning up after a client, or is the client going to be cleaning up after themselves?
The applicant is here. They can actually answer that question for you if you like, part of their business plan.
Okay, then I will defer that question and have another question. One of the comments submitted by a citizen had to do with having a special dumpster because this is going to be animal hair, animal feces, animal urine, and just putting it in a regular dumpster out and back. And being familiar with this particular area of the city, there's not a whole lot of easement alley space. So the question by one citizen was, what kind of a special dumpster or facility is going to be there for the disposal of animal hair, animal feces, and animal urine? Do you have an understanding or answer to that, sir?
No, sir, I didn't have an answer to that.
Okay. It may be worthwhile, I think, to understand that. It was a valid comment by that one particular citizen because this is not normal refuge. Use that term. Okay?
Yes,
or possibly maybe applicant has the ability to do so. Any other questions from council members for Mr. Tennant before we have the applicant themselves come up? Mr. Contreras, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. All right. The applicant is here. Yes. Please come forward. And as we understand the item that we have, you, I believe, are Eric and Joanna Banda?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Please state your address for the record, so we have it, please.
Eric and Joanna Banda, 947 Green Rock.
So how about my question that Mr. Tennant didn't have an answer to, in terms of a citizen having it was good merit to the question in terms of disposal of animal hair, animal feces, and animal urine, not just going into a regular dumpster that sits behind the facility.
Correct.
What are you going to be doing with that, sir?
Okay, I guess that was more really with the management itself. They currently only have one dumpster for that whole area. So we're already talking about maybe separating that to kind of help with that, you know. And I mean, all those are valid points because it's, like you said, feces and urine, so that needs to be separated.
Okay, so as I'm saying, that the question that was raised by a citizen, I believe, has great merit.
Yes.
There is
Yes, it
something
does.
special and unique about the disposal of that.
Mr. Banda, could you raise the microphone up and speak into it clearly, please?
So are we having a tech problem with the muffling from the microphone? Is that, or just need to move it closer?
Just speak closer to the mic.
Okay, can you hear me?
Okay.
Okay, I was just probably a little far.
All right. All right, so Mr. Bond, if you would, for everyone's impartation, give the answer to that again in terms of a special dumpster being able to accommodate the unique refuse coming out of this
Right, so
facility.
we've already talked to, which is Options Realty, who owns that property, about adding a separate dumpster just for us, because currently it's all for one dumpster for that whole property. So it's already being discussed to be able to, you know, the points that person made are very valid, so we're already in talks to
Would you have any objection to this council adding a stipulation that it not just be discussed, but it actually be acquired in some specific?
Not at all.
Okay. All right, Mr. Contreras, sir, please.
Well, I'll start with that note right there. Just the reason for the question, I believe, regarding a special dumpster is because of the potential for odors.
Right.
And providing a separate dumpster isn't going to resolve that odor issue in and of itself. So that's something that we'd have to know that they were being put in separate sealed bags or something like that to minimize the opportunity for that. Are you prepared to do that?
Yes, sir. Now, I do want to explain kind of what a DIY dog wash is.
Sure.
I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with it, but so basically, the facility would just have stations for you to bring your own pet. You will come in, everything is provided for you, from shampoo, towels, everything. So you're probably spending maybe 30 minutes, you know, an average 30 to 45 minutes, depending on the size of the dog and everything. So, you know, dogs are not going to be just sitting around, you know, just leisurely playing there, you know. They go in and out, so it's not, the only actual cleaning is of the tub. Now, of course, there could be accidents, you know, in the floor and stuff, of course, you know, dogs and stuff, but as far as dogs just sitting around, you know.
So you don't anticipate an excessive amount because of the time they're there?
Right,
Okay.
exactly.
My
Right.
next question was, you have a grassy area out front while people are waiting for their turn to get in. Do you plan on allowing them to use that area to maintain their pets?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And that being the case, there could be potential for
Yes,
additional.
and we will have
mess.
receptacles there and bags and the crates, yes.
Okay. And last question, will there be anybody there that will actually provide cleaning or grooming services at a charge?
No, this is all self-serve.
Okay, I saw a yes and I hear a no.
You mean that somebody's gonna be there all day to clean after? Yes.
Oh, no, no, just the reason I'm asking is pretty obvious to those of us that are familiar with that area. There's a pet store right up the street that also provides grooming services.
Right.
Different animals,
Right.
no pun intended, because of what your service does.
Right. There's no grooming done at all.
Okay, you
do
don't
it
see a
yourself.
potential in the future of actually taking that on as a service that you would provide?
If it was required, but honestly, just on Main Street alone, there's 2 groomers.
Right.
So that service is already here. You know, we moved to Duncanville 2 years ago, originally from Bishop Arts, and we used to take our dog there. You know, we lived in an apartment back then. When we were in Glen Heights, we didn't even know this existed, honestly. You know, so when we first started going there, I mean, if you actually sit there and try to, you know, wash your dog at home, it's a pain in the butt, honestly, you know?
Yeah.
And this service, I think here is useful because there's no one around here that has it. I mean, we literally drive to Bishop Arts. The other closest one, I think, is in Arlington and Mansfield. So.
Well, thank you.
Mr. Coons.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I'm still trying to figure out, because both the mayor and Councilman Contreras were asking about waste disposal.
Right.
And I think we got closer with Councilman Contreras, but So you've got the separate dumpster, right? And so what exactly is the disposal process? Because I did read in the report here, it says that that there'll be some, I guess, some containers that will be tightly sealed, it says, waterproof containers. So can you describe in detail the disposal
Waterproof
process
containers,
with the waste?
I'm sorry, what was that?
So in our report here,
Okay, no, that's
number
the
3.
waterproof is the actual inside of the building. So FRP board will be all around the whole, because of all the water, so there's no mold growing in or anything like that.
That's not answering the question,
Right,
sir.
right, I know, it's just that the waterproofing was something separate, what he was bringing up. Now, as far as, back to your question, as far as I don't see a lot of excess as far as feces and stuff like that for us to be bagging. There will be a receptacle outside, like Mr. Contreras said, for the dogs to relieve themselves outside, that we will take care of. Like Mayor Gordon said, if it's stipulated that we have to have it, which we already were planning on anyway, we will definitely do that just to have a separate receptacle or separate trash can just for us.
So maybe, can I ask Mr. Tennant? So
certainly,
in the report that we have, the staff report under additional special conditions, it says, number 3, all animal hair and feces shall be removed from the floors daily and shall be stored in tightly covered waterproof containers in such a manner as to prevent a nuisance until final disposal.
Yes,
So-
sir, I placed it on your screen right there for everybody.
Oh,
to read as well.
yes, sir.
And your question specifically regarding that is, oh, sorry about that. Can you hear me now? All right, and your question specifically regarding that, Councilmember?
So I'm just making sure, because when we were asking the applicant about this process, I didn't hear a response specifically toward that. So I'm just trying to make sure that that process is going to be in place and make sure that we can put, maybe, I don't know if.
Yes.
Okay, so the way it works is when you come in and you use the tub, everything that's on the tub, we clean it. So we're gonna have special baggage, special stuff to put it in, like the hair, all that stuff. At the end of the day, then we dispose of it in the place that he said that we were gonna put it in. Like the area where, not the container they have now, in the other container that we'll be using just for us.
So what's the other container? Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Can I speak?
Yeah. City Manager, you want to help elaborate on this, please?
I think I'm hearing what they're saying. So basically, when they clean out the tubs, it's kind of like washing your hair. There's not going to be a lot of hair, but the hair that's there will be stored in a separate container. What we're asking them to do is to have a full container for it, but this is not a hair cutting service, it's just dog wash. And basically, the hair that comes from the dog wash will be put in a separate bag. And I think if they do self-grooming themselves, that'll be in the bag. But what we're asking is a separate trash container just for them, separate from the regular dumpster that they all share. Is that correct?
That is accurate, ma'am. So basically, instead of it having, like most of your trash receptacles are open aired, which allow for you to actually put waste and hair in this case right here, it will be a closed container, something like your waste canisters that have the foot thing on it that actually lifts up, so that way there's not a potential for there to be any smell or any hair that blows freely throughout the business. Because the aspect of it is to keep the business clean and also to ensure that there's no quote unquote waste or fecal matter that could actually make the next animal sick, if you will.
So just being clear now, as we're getting closer and closer to the detail of understanding this, nobody's going to be bringing in clippers and cutting hair. This is strictly a wash only.
Right, wash only, yeah. Wash, there will be no trimming, that's the only thing.
But when you do wash dogs, I know like my dog specifically, you do have hair that, if you, that would be that one.
Right,
yeah.
but nobody's going to be, as I said, there's going to be no cutting of hair.
Nobody's gonna be cutting anything.
There'll be residue for basic grooming, but no cutting of hair.
Yes.
Grooming, okay, okay. Mr. Coons, do you want to continue, please?
Yeah, and the other question I had was, are there any measures in place to respond to potentially aggressive or overly excited animals?
I mean, we have 2 dogs currently. We're pretty good with dogs, but like you said, you never know. But normally people that have dogs will not bring a dog that is overly aggressive to this type of establishment because there are other dogs. I wouldn't think that to be, the case.
And sir, you're actually hitting on a point that there was another proviso that's placed up there when we talk about cages. Heaven forbid there is a bad dog up there. I mean, but we all have dogs, and sometimes dogs, depending on the time of the year, they may be a little bit more excited than normal. With that said, there is a potential for them to actually put a crate up, so that way they could store the dogs in, and that's part of the reason why you have proviso number 2, if you will, that basically, no, excuse me, proviso number 6, number 2, that basically talks about the fact that you no wood, so ensure that it's not something that could potentially have a potential to hurt the dog or for there to be any spread of disease in that regard. So that's been factored into that proviso.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Let me go back to a question that Mr. Contreras asked, and it's a great question about the grassy area in front of the operation itself, which is owned by Mr. Anderson's properties.
Mm-hmm.
I presume at some point you have an agreement that a client is going to be signing and using before they actually bring their animal in for grooming. So is there some clause in that agreement that any animal relieving themselves on that grassy area is going to be taken care of by that client and not by you folks?
That's a liability issue. That's his problem, not your problem.
Well, it's the city's problem if that grassy area becomes riddled with feces.
Well, you've got to anticipate that. It's impossible for us to enforce that, Mayor.
Well, that's why I'm asking if a client will agree to taking care of that grassy area if their animal does use it.
He's just like any other business. He's got to take and maintain the property, whether it's a restaurant, a dog wash, any.
So we as a city cannot require in the client-owner agreement to have that clause in there that.
We can't get into a client agreement.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. City Attorney, for that clarification. I'm worried. Okay.
I can tell you this. I'm going to tell you this. My wife will be there. She will have this place looking nice.
Okay.
I can guarantee you this, okay? I can guarantee you this. She's
Okay.
not going to let anybody, because they don't want to pick up their stuff, we're going to take pride in our ownership.
And
We live here in Duncanville. We want to provide the service not only for us, but for everybody that's here,
I was just going to say, we know where you live.
Yes.
Yeah.
Come on over whenever, you're welcome whenever you want.
Okay.
Mayor, the condition that you want is that they will maintain it in a safe, healthy condition for both the customer, the animal, and the general public. That's the regulation that you want.
Very well. Yes, sir. Mr. Tennant?
At least the intent was captured in number 5 for that particular. Yes.
Nuisance-free manner.
Yes.
With the premises does include the grassy area, including the rented space. That would be the proviso that I understand. And we know where the owner lives. Okay. All right. Mr. Coons, do you have another question?
I just move that we approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second? We have a second by Mr. Contreras. Council, please vote. And the unanimous approval.
Thank you very much.
And we welcome entrepreneurs to our city. And I'm not going to apologize for the interrogation, but that's the way it goes. As I stated, item 5B has been withdrawn by the applicant. As stipulated in our rules of procedures for the city of Duncanville, at any point in time, if necessary, any city council member has the authority and the option to call for an executive session. And I'm going to do so. I'm going to call for an executive session to be called for city council to discuss items 5C, 5D, and 5E, and do that with our city attorney for legal counsel. So with that, I'm going to recess our city council. Timestamp city secretary is 8:30. The timestamp for reconvening is 9:26 p.m. on the 21st of June, 2022. Everyone present, thank you for staying with us and understanding that we had important business to be conducted tonight. I want you to listen very closely to what I'm going to be saying. We do understand, and you all know, that the three residences for items 5C, 5D, and 5E are all owned by the same individuals, the Carlsons. Knowing that we have, by law, have to address each of these individually on our agenda item to show that each one is being considered, what we can do for efficiency purposes is there's a possibility for I as the mayor, to aggregate your comments so that it's not necessary to open a public hearing for 5C, close it, open a public hearing for 5D, close it, open a public hearing for 5E, and close it. Because these are all aggregated under one particular umbrella, so to speak. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open public hearings for items 5C, 5D, and 5E. And is our practice, and what we do in our city, is we open, as I said, if you were here for what we did with item 5A, we open the public hearing. All those in support, you have 10 minutes. All those opposed, you have 10 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the public hearing on items 5C, 5D, and 5D in the aggregate, and everyone in support of the resolutions for special use permits on these three agenda items, please come forward. Don't think it's necessary for individuals to say why you support it. I think we've got plenty of understanding why individuals are in support. However, if everyone comes forward and you want to select a spokesperson to say the particular words, you're more than welcome to do that, but it's going to be a 10-minute window. Then I will close the 10-minute window in favor individuals in favor, and I will open a 10-minute window for those opposed. Come forward, everyone who is opposed, and we'll do that. And as individuals come forward, you may not have to speak, but we are going to check off your names based on the cards. So we will ask you for your name and for your address. We're going to make a record because we have your citizen comments to make sure that all that goes into the record in terms of exactly who was in support and who is in opposition. Okay? Very good. So, with that, I'm going to open a public hearing on items 5C, 5D, and 5E on our agenda, and this portion of the public hearing is being opened at timestamp of 9:29. All individuals in favor of the special use permits of agenda items 5C, 5D, and 5E, please come forward. As I said, I believe we clearly understand your support for these special use permits. So what we would like to do first is get a roll call of all of you individuals to get your names into the record, one by one. Please start. Name and address, please. Need you on the mic. It's got to be.
Yes.
It's being recorded, so we have to get into the record. Just a moment, we got to make sure that we're tracking, okay? Yeah, please get into that mic very close so we can get it in the record.
Thank you. You ready?
Yes, sir.
Linda Hubel, 635 Sherrill Boulevard.
Next, please.
Anna Hall, 103 South Capri Drive, Duncanville.
Ready? Thank you. Next, please.
Alla Wilkins, 415 Houston Street, and the owner of the bed and breakfast. Thank you.
Thank you. Ready? Next, please.
James Wilkins, 415 Husted Street, the bed and breakfast that my wife mentioned.
Thank you. Ready? Next, please.
Stuart Carlson, 822 Sherrill Boulevard, Duncanville.
Thank you. Ready? Next, please.
Judith Reed, 935 Green Rock Drive, Duncanville.
Oh, as we're going through, the city manager has asked, if you filled out a card, let us know that as well, so she's looking for a card. If you're speaking but we don't have a card, then we'll still make note of your presence. So is anybody that has spoken not submitted a card? And you were on 1003 Capri, if I recall? No. You did, okay. Anyone that did not submit a card is what we need to know. So everybody else, we do have cards to check. Very well, thank you. Yes, sir. Next.
Nathaniel Rosendahl, 6615 Nyman Drive, Dallas, and I submitted a card.
Just a moment, just a moment. Ready? Next, please, yes.
I'm Caroline Rosendahl. I own 710 Markwood Drive in Duncanville, and I live at 6615 Nyman Drive in Dallas.
Ready? Next, please. Yes, sir.
Joe Lesko, 822 Sherrill Boulevard.
Ready? Next, please. Yes.
Sue D'Amato, 211 North Casa Grande Circle.
211 Casa Grande, D'Amato. Yeah, D'Amato. Next, please.
Peter D'Amato, 211 North Casa Grande Circle, Duncanville.
Ready? Next, please.
Evelyn Kirby, 710 Markwood.
Next, please.
Paul Carlson, 710 Markwood.
Ready? Next, please.
Bryce Daniels, 238 Kimberly Hill.
What was it?
238 Kimberly Hill, Palmer, Texas.
Kimberly Hill, Palmer.
Correct.
Thank you, sir. Ready? Next, please.
I'm not sure, is my card valid? Stephen Landtroop, 1315 Heather Glen Street, Duncanville.
Thank you. You may all please sit down. Anyone present wishing to oppose the SUPs for items 5C, 5D, and 5E, please come forward. Just a moment.
Marlene Skinner.
Just a moment. Just a moment.
Is that it? Just one moment. Okay. Okay.
So, seeing that there's 4 of you, we have a 10-minute block.
I'm against.
Yeah. Okay. Just
Is that all I say, or do I speak?
Wait a minute. It's my turn.
further?
Hold on a second. Hold on just a second. Hold on.
Wait just a minute. Okay, wait just a second. Just no.
Okay. Seeing that there's 4 of you and there is a 10-minute block, if each of you wish to speak and take up those 10 minutes, you may, or if you want to just oppose in an aggregate, that's as well too. But I had to take all that big group and combine it together. So if you wish to speak, we will start the 10-minute mark now.
I want to speak. Do you want to speak? Okay. Then you can, right now.
And we need your name and address.
Can I speak now?
Yes, name and address, please.
I live at, as I said, 359 Linkley. I can look out my window.
Your name, please?
And see
Your
name.
name.
Your name. Give him your name. My name. Your name. I gave it already.
No, you didn't.
Tell him who you are. Marlene Skinner.
There you go.
359 Linkley.
Thank you.
I can look out my window and see 350 Linkley. Okay. When this first came up, the website of the Planning and Zoning Commission to see what we were talking about. And I noticed that they said that they were interested in the preservation of neighborhoods in Duncanville. And as things went on, I thought, well, I'm not sure that having short-term rentals is consistent with having preservation of Duncanville, or if it is not taking away a little bit of Duncanville. Anyway, and it said that the short-term rental was 30 days or less. And so that seems like a lot of change of, pardon me, occupancy. I also looked at the website that the Carlsons put out, and it had their, a profile of each house, the one on Sherrill, the one on Linkley, and the one on Capri. And they talked about the benefits that would come from having people live on a short-term basis in these houses. They also mentioned that maybe other people would like to, as I recall, either consider renting out a room in their house or a property as a short-term rental. And
Okay, Ms. Skinner.
So,
Miss,
am I too far away? Or
no, you're fine, but there are 3 people that wish to say something as well, and I can only allocate 10 minutes.
I don't hear you very well. I'm sorry.
You can only allocate 3 minutes. You can only allocate 10 minutes to all 4 of us.
Okay.
Well, how about we do this?
Okay.
For you 4 individuals that are in opposition,
All right.
do one of you want to assume her role and articulate opposition?
Okay. I would like to say that the Carlsons on their website talked about the fact that other people may have houses that they have rent out a room, a spare room, and I don't think that is much of a problem, although they thought that probably those people would come under regulations also if we had particular regulations for short-term rentals. Thank you. The Carlsons, as far as I know, they live at Sherrill Boulevard. They do not live on Linkley, so.
How much time do we have left, City Secretary?
7 minutes and 32 seconds. We have to take the mic.
Exactly, and that's why I'm offering this opportunity. I'm recognizing you in opposition. Please take an opportunity to use the 10 minutes to the best of your ability.
He said 10 minutes.
No. Thank you. Thank you.
My name is Charles Bateman. I live at 907 Huntington Drive in Duncanville. And the reason I'm here tonight, not necessarily about Huntington Drive, but about 60 years ago, my father-in-law, mother-in-law, and my wife moved to Duncanville. We're on Thrush Avenue for 12 years. And then in 1974, they bought 102 South Capri and moved in, and have been there ever since. And the one thing that, or one of the reasons that they moved to Duncanville and to Duncanville Estates on Capri is the fact that it was single-family residential. No condos, no apartments, no townhomes, and no businesses. That's been the way it's been ever since, until, I guess, last December. Know they were when they were living at 102 South Capri, they were there and don't know the neighbors when the Walls moved there and also when the Brinsons moved there. So they've seen that neighborhood change over the years. Unfortunately, my father-in-law died last September. My mother-in-law has had dementia, and that has affected her for about the past 10 years, and they actually both went to assisted living because they couldn't take care of each other. She's still there today. Members of the council, they paid taxes. We have purchased services from landscapers, everybody else that you could think of for all those 60 years. And to this day, it's still in the family. But the problem that I have, and the reason I think that this special use or specific use permit should be denied, is the fact that, number one, even by the admission of the owners back in 2016, they set up this Airbnb. Now, not, the law, the ordinance back then was single-family residential, and that's it. Now, I can't go back and talk to the members of the city council, things like that, in 2016, but it was never really enforced. They also say that that the neighborhood itself, right, that they add to the neighborhood. Well, I can go next door to my friends. We have one sitting here with us. I can go next door and know these people. But since the time my in-laws there until now, we have never had anybody staying there in any of the, at 103 South Capri to ever come over, knock on our door, say, hi, I'm such and such, introduce themselves, and say, hey, I'm here, I'm part of the community. That never has never happened. Matter of fact, the whole Airbnb, now I know it's short-term rentals, but they are with Airbnb, and everybody understands that. But they never considered what the community itself would do with an Airbnb. But as I went around talking to people, I asked them, all right, were you here in 2016? The answer is yes. Did anybody ever come around and tell you that, hey, we're going to use this, or we're going to start an Airbnb, and here's the reason why? And I think a little bit of honesty, a little bit of candor, and upfront with what was going on back then would have eased it into what we're, easier than what we're doing today. Now, I know that with the rewriting of the ordinance, you're trying to get to that point. However, by their own admission, the Carlsons said that they've had very few short-term rentals. Well, now the ordinance is for short-term rentals, but here we're talking about long-term rentals and very few short-term rentals.
Mr. Bateman, we have what, about 3 minutes left?
3 minutes and 22 seconds.
Do you want to cede and allow another individual to speak to? I just want to be fair to you four individuals.
My name is Rene Sanchez, and I live at 839 West Center Street across the residence.
Mr. Bateman, did we have a card on Mr. Bateman?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I need to.
Just, yeah, the time.
Okay. Like I said, should I continue?
No, what was your address again, Mr. Bateman?
907 Huntington Drive.
Thank you, Brad. Okay, go ahead, sir.
My name is Rene Sanchez, and I live at 839 West Center Street, across the street from the resident of Capri. And I'm opposed to this because everybody has been focusing on the Carlsons. As a matter of fact, I know them for a few times that I've seen them. They're great people. But as a homeowner, and each one of you have your own residence, you could look to the right, you could look to the left. You know who's staying here while you guys are in the meeting. I own my business. I usually spend more time at work versus at the residence. By me having my residence right now, I don't know who's staying next door to me or who across the street. That's the only problem that I have. As you guys have a busy schedule, you guys have your agendas, but you know who's staying next to your residence. I go against this because not that the Carlsons have nothing to do with it, but the actual structure of having, it's basically like a timeshare, not even a timeshare, it's like a halfway home. People come in and out. Her father was my very close neighbor. When my kids were in school, he would call me and say, listen, there's cars parked in front of your house that do not belong there. So I knew that there were people that were not belonging to the house. He would call me. And by me being in my own residence now that they have, I'm not even discussing about the parking or anything, because I do realize that they do have students, and the parking has nothing to do with this. The problem that I have is allowing strangers. It could be a month, it could be a week, or it could be, no matter whether they're students or as I was reading the emails, police officers, good people also do bad things. And as a homeowner, residents, I did not move from DeSoto to Duncanville to be worried now about who's staying next to my house. That's my own personal point of view.
Do we have some time left for Mr.
Yes, sir. Okay, one second. Mr. Sanchez, can you come see me? And we have 1 minute and 26 seconds.
Mr. Bateman, does your wife wish to speak? Is that your wife? Oh,
No.
Okay, so 1 minute and 20 seconds, sir.
All right, here's a scenario. What if I decide that we want to sell, that we want to turn our house into a short-term rental also, right across the street? So we're willing to do everything it takes to qualify, pay the fees and everything else. So if I can turn around and make money off of my house, how about Renee next to me? Can he do it? Well, sure he can right now. How about the people next door to me? Can they do it? And the people across the street, why couldn't they do the same thing? The bottom line, ladies and gentlemen, is where does this end? How far are you going to go? How many people are going to have an Airbnb, have a business out of their house? Is it going to be all over the city? I mean, where do you put a stop to it? In your ordinance right now, you have absolutely nothing for that. I say, don't allow the permits now. Turn it back into the single-family residential zoning that it was and has been, because it's worked just fine. And you don't get into that, well, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that, and I'm going to set one up. It doesn't have to be Airbnb either. By the way, the other point is, you do not have to have a short-term rental in order to make money or make a profit off of a piece of property. That's not the only way that you have to do it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. That concludes the the in favor and opposition portion of the open hearings for items 5C, 5D, and 5E. I'll entertain a motion to close the hearings.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion to close the public hearing by Mr. Kuntz, a second by Mayor Pro Tem Harvey. Council, please vote on closing public hearings. Thank you. Public hearings are closed. Timestamp is 9:47. The purpose of our executive session was to obtain legal advice from our city attorney on this particular matter, which is complex, and we needed to get a very, very clear understanding of how to move forward. So, Mr. City Attorney, I'm going to turn this discussion to you, sir, please.
Thank you. Mayor and Council, as a result of the executive session, I want to have the audience and both you understand that we're talking about single-family residential districts in our community under our zoning ordinance. Under those zoning ordinance, a short-term rental is allowed by specific use permit. Our ordinance defines a short-term rental as a residential unit offered for rent to guests for residential purposes for a period of 1 to 30 days. Examples include, or not limited to, and they list Airbnb, vacation rentals, owner, home away, and other such brokers. Such rentals may include a shared room, a single room, an entire dwelling unit. These uses are conducted by the homeowner or tenant, not by a hotel or other business. So it's owner occupied. Owner occupied. So the owner has to live there and then rent their home. That's our definition. Boarding houses are as follows by definition. Indulge me a minute. A boarding house is a temporary or permanent resident that provides housing for 4 or more unrelated people. Such use is not licensed by the state. So if you rent a room in your house or you have 4 rooms in a house that you're renting out individually, that's a boarding home. Boarding homes are not allowed by specific use permit or for any other reason in a single-family residential district. I've read the staff report. I've heard all the comments that have been made this evening with regard to the operation of the homes by, or the houses. I think Cheryl is the actual home. Remember, STR, you have to be the homeowner living in the facility to rent it out. So the other 2 are businesses. They're not allowed. I don't think that this council can entertain the relief or the request of the property owner because I don't think it meets the definition of an STR. The staff report and the comments from the applicant and those speaking in favor of the applicant clearly indicate that the rentals for these properties in many instances exceed 30 days or for periods of 30, 60, 90 or more days. They're not vacation rentals. They're rentals for the purpose of supporting job relocation, access for public health care or for healthcare officials at local hospitals in the area, job relocation, for reasons other than truly an Airbnb or a vacation rental for the weekend or for a week. For those reasons, I would ask that you table this matter for a minimum 90-day period so that I may meet with the representatives of the Carlsons and see if we can accommodate this kind of use or a modification of this kind of use. Because the request that they've made this evening does not fit the definitions that are applicable under your zoning ordinance, and you cannot grant a short-term rental request, because that's not what they're doing. And so the facts don't support the application, and so what we're trying to do is thread the needle here and find an appropriate, what I'll call more of akin to corporate housing, where it's not, there seems to be a profile of the kind of renter that they want for a longer period of time, and we need to address that use, not a short-term rental. So I would ask that you entertain a motion to continue this item for 90 days.
Thank you, City Attorney, for that discussion and amplification in terms of the application of the ordinances as these apply. And your statement is that you do not feel that we as a council are able to act on these SUPs under what we have present with us today. So the chair will entertain a motion to table these particular special use permits for a period not to exceed 90 days.
Second.
We have a motion to approve tabling. It is by Mayor Pro Tem Harvey. We have a second by Mr. Contreras. City Council, please vote on this motion. The vote is 6-1 in favor of tabling these SUPs on items 5C, 5D, and 5E.
And as also, Mayor, I would be remiss to say that the staff would be willing to entertain to try to accommodate any current rental agreements that have been made with, and let those expire without renewal until we can get this matter addressed.
Yes, we as a council are cognizant of commitments made by the homeowners to those individuals who are now occupying them under some lease or rental agreement. We understand that as well. And understand too what Mr. Hager has said, our city attorney, that he intends and will meet with the Carlsons and a representative of the Carlsons to understand the mode in which they may continue to conduct some form of business here in the city of Duncanville. Thank you very much. So item F on our agenda, we do have another executive session to undertake. So item F, City Attorney, can we apply item 5F to this executive session in terms of that motion? And to also apply item 5S, which is originally on the agenda, to apply to the executive session in item 1 on the agenda? Or do we need a separate item on the agenda to take any necessary action as a result of the public hearings on the items 5C, 5D, and 5E?
Mayor and Council, I don't believe there'll be any action taken as a result of the executive session.
Okay, thank you very much.
So
all right.
we could move to staff and then go to executive session or whatever the will of the council.
Will do. All right. Thank you very much. So item 5F there is take no action, necessary action as a result of executive session. Moving on to item number 6, staff and board reports. Received the monthly financial report as of April 30th, 2022. Managing Director of Fiscal Services, Adina Atmore. Ms. Atmore, the floor is yours, ma'am.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and City Manager. Tonight I present to you the financial report for April 2022. Thank you. I put some brief highlights on the staff report for this, but basically because it's kind of hard to see the actual chart, but let me just draw out for you that since we're in the month of April, This is where we should be about 58% of all of the budget as far as revenues received and revenues spent. And I can tell you today that the general fund is doing well, with 75% of our budget for revenues has already been received, collected, most of that being property taxes. As you know, we collect the property taxes real early. January, February are the two months that we receive the bulk of the property tax, as well as December. Excuse me. We also collected 43% of the sales tax for this quarter. In your package, you had you had your certified property tax and your sales tax reports were collected for that moment. I'll go ahead and point out to you, if you look on your report in your package, you'll notice that the fund balance for this month is not unaudited. We have completed the financial audit, and so the beginning fund balance for general fund was audited and finalized at $15.2 million. So that was close to what we had projected would be the audited fund balance. So just wanted to let you know that that is considered final. I also put some little lines down below to show you what the reserve requirement is for the general fund. You will see that our excess reserves are around $6.6 million of that $15.2 million. And so the general fund, that's why one of the reasons I say general fund is doing well, and we have no issues. We do have a sufficient amount of fund balance. This is the use of fund balance expenditures. As you know, council sometimes designates projects, certain projects, to come from the general fund balance and to be designated as one-time projects. And this is kind of a status of where they are thus far. Your utility fund, the overall highlights is that they are within the range of the targeted for this year. The utility revenues are at 49% of the budgeted. We do expect, we are going through the summer months right now, and the cutoffs and the late fees, we have reinstituted that part of the utility program, and so we expect the revenues to kind of reflect that at the end of the summer. Our utility expenses are 42.6% of the budgeted amount, so they are still within the target or below the target, but we are still on target to end the year under budget. Part of the $5 million, we are anticipating $5 million to be transferred from the utility fund to fund utility utility projects. The utility fund is right now at the fund balance is at 14.49. That's the ending fund balance that was done by the auditors, that was finalized. And so if you would look at the fund, as I said, they're at 49% of their revenue target for the year. And we expect to go through the summer months and probably that pickup. This is the utility CIP fund. This is where a lot of the infrastructure projects are being paid for out of. The $8 million for capital outlay that was budgeted. You can see we have not spent a lot of that at this point, and so the Public Works Department is right now looking at the utility infrastructure and determining where we are as far as the projects in that fund to see if we will still be on target to spend the $8 million. This is the Economic Development Fund. Their finalized fund balance beginning fund balance is $5 million, and so that was a little higher than what we anticipated for the projections from the end of the year. But this fund is doing well, and we're on target for April. The Field House fund summary. The projection that we had was that it would be underfunded by $1.6 million, but it was on 1.4. So we're doing better than expected, even though this fund still has a negative fund balance. We are looking at trying to improve that as much as possible during the current year. Your report includes all the other funds that the city has, including your hotel tax funds, your TIF fund, your forfeiture funds. You have your debt service fund, your fleet replacement fund, your IT fund, and a lot of your capital project funds, where we do have capital project money bond money from 2019 that we still have. It is being spent, but there's still quite a bit still left in the fund balance at this point. And that included your fire station that we talked about earlier this evening. And then this last fund, the traffic improvement fund, that fund is going away. That was the red light fund. And so after this fiscal year, that fund will no longer be active because we are no longer operating the red light fund. We also have two other enterprise funds are the drainage fund and the sanitation fund. And so right now, as you can see with the fund balance, that the beginning fund balance, we still have a sufficient amount of balance in this fund, and it's doing well.
Mr. Coons, you had a question at this point?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. Could you go back one slide? So for the traffic improvement, so
Yes.
you said that fund is
Yes,
going
it's gonna
away.
be
Can you
active.
explain what that means for the
Okay.
$243,000?
Yes, traffic improvement fund was the red light fund, and we no longer do red light, which means ticketing people for
Right.
running the red light.
Right.
So no, we no longer do that. So
I
we're
guess I'm
not allowed
asking
to
what,
do that.
but is there a balance in that fund?
That balance in the fund will be transferred to another fund.
Okay,
so
that's
that
what
we
I'm
can
asking.
use it. Yes, we
Okay.
are not going to let it just go away.
Do we know where we're-
Transfer it to another fund that we can utilize it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Contreras?
Just to be clear, we're still going to write your ticket for
We just can't use the red light camera.
We can't use the cameras.
Well, there are no more cameras. They've all been
No more.
moved.
That's right.
Yeah.
Just say we're not using them. Okay.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. Any other questions?
Mr. Harvey?
Yes, sir.
So, Ms. Atmore, in terms of following up on what Councilmember Coons was asking, I imagine it will be transferred to a smaller fund to be used for one-time purchases?
Yes, either one-time purchases, or we have other funds like I believe this fund was, I'm trying to remember what we had talked about this fund going to, but the funds were going to another fund that can use it. It's either was the alley improvements or the street fund that we were going to use it for. Because right now, we transfer a small portion into our street maintenance fund, and if we need some more to take care of our streets or maintain, we might transfer to that part, because this is to help maintain our streets.
And ongoing traffic signal maintenance and that sort of thing will be taken care of by the general fund?
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
But we can also transfer it there if need be. But right now, we were trying to make sure that we take care of a lot of the maintenance on the streets.
Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Atmore.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 6B, receive the Public Works Department quarterly report. Interim Public Works Director Jackie Colton. Ms. Colton.
Need water? Good evening. I don't know, am I okay? Because I don't want to be too loud, but I don't want to be too low either. So, good evening, Honorable Mayor Gordon, distinguished members of the Duncanville City Council, City Attorney in his absence, and our City Manager. I am Jackie Colton, here to update you all on Public Works Quarterly Report for the second quarter. Since we last talked, there have been some organizational changes within our organization. The Building Inspections Division actually moved to the Neighborhood Services Department, and Public Works picked up building facility maintenance. So with this changes, Public Works is at a 61 employees with, excuse me, with a budget of about $20 million. Now, hiring personnel has been a problem for us, especially when it comes to maintenance workers, but we are happy to report that we have a couple of new employees. One of them is Miss Brianna Davis, who is my executive assistant, and we actually got her from another department. And then we were able to hire a maintenance worker, Mr. Jose Garza. So with that hire, there are still 3 vacancies in utilities, and we have 7 vacancies in the street division.
Ms. Colton, quick question. What do you think the potential is for filling those streets division vacancies?
We have actually met with HR and tried to identify maybe some other sites that we can post a job announcement, but the city is undertaking a compensation study at this point in time. As a matter of fact, there are meetings scheduled for next week, and a major part of us not being able to hire is because, quite frankly, our salaries are not competitive at the lower ranks.
At the lower ranks?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
I mean, well, especially at the lower ranks. Yes,
okay.
sir.
All right, thank you.
So that we believe that that will help. Okay. Our employees are our most precious resource, and we have some, a terrible heat wave going on. So there are things that we do in order to mitigate the effects of the heat wave. It consists of training, frequent reminders to staff to stay hydrated and to take breaks as needed and to watch out for the fellow coworkers. And then also we're scheduling the more strenuous activities for the beginning of the day to keep them out of the sun during the hottest part of the day. And because there are always, other activities that can take place, later in the afternoon that they can do. And 80% of our employees work out in the elements. So, it's very important to us to make sure that they're safe, that we're doing all we can to take care of them. Okay, so money that we talked about that has not been spent is reserved for the Daniel Dale Ground Storage Tank project. This project was actually awarded in January of last year. Work commenced, and around this time last year, it was discovered that there was internal damage within the tank. This work was not a part of the scope. It was originally just an internal and external painting project of both the north and the south tanks at the Daniel Dale ground storage facility and pump station site. And these tanks happen to hold about 4.5 million gallons of our 17.5 million gallons water storage. So, it's very important, that we make sure that they're sound and that there are no issues. So when we discovered that there was internal corrosion and that, and structural damage and the foundations needed, they were weak, we asked council, we came to council and we asked council if we could have additional money, like $1 million actually, to perform the extra work in the north and south tank. And the $1 million was based upon recommendation from our design engineer, RJN, and they happen to be here with us tonight. And so, yes. Yes. And so we, because of supply chain shortages and all the other difficulties we're having in actually getting supplies and getting workers, that $1 million turned out not to be enough to complete work in both tanks. So we negotiated a change order with Nova Painting, and the change order was, we just had enough authorization to complete one tank, so we had to descope the south tank.
So the pictures we're looking at are the north tank?
Yes, sir. Yeah,
And-
they're before and after. I mean, well, actually, we're in the process. That tank rehab project is going to be completed by December.
Okay, what's the life cycle of this cleaning and restoration? When's the next time we're gonna have to do this?
Well, actually, it needs to be short of 20 years because it's been about 20 years, but there are some things that we know that we need to watch for as a result of finding this internal damage, because actually the tanks had been, they're inspected every year, but we have divers, but they were unable to see the extent of this damage. So we know that there are some things that we will be doing differently as we do the inspection of these tanks.
Okay, Mr. Harvey.
So, Director Colton, looking at these pictures, this tank appears to be out of service. Am I looking at it correctly?
Yes, sir, you are absolutely correct. Both the north and the south tank are out of service currently.
So what is the impact on our water pressure levels?
Okay.
Is there any?
No, sir, there is not any impact. We have the ability to move water around and adjust our system as we need to. I'm also, our utilities superintendent is here, Mr. Matt Bryant, and I'll ask him to address that question more definitively.
Hey, Mayor and Council, there is no effect on the pressure. It has decreased our on-the-ground storage by 1/3. So I'm keeping 2/3 of our on-the-ground storage at all times.
Great question. Yeah, Mr. Contreras, you had a?
No, that answers.
That is, okay, all right. Thank you, Ms. Colton.
you.
Continue, please.
Okay, so now let's talk about the Daniel Dale Road reconstruction project. So this is a bond project. It's funded by bond funds as well as utility funds. So that's additional funding that we will see as this project is completed. And so the westbound lanes and the westbound trails have been completed, along with the utility infrastructure subsurface to the pavement. So we're now working on the eastbound side, and then we have landscaping and monuments. So ultimately, the project is scheduled to be completed in December. And so one of the things, you know, construction is always messy, especially a project of this magnitude, and there have been several rerouting of traffic. So we appreciate the citizens and residents and travelers' patience as we undergo this process, but it's going to be very nice upon completion by the end of this year. So the picture you see before you is the pavement, the westbound pavement that has been completed. Okay, this is a picture of the 12-foot trail. And this is a picture of the water and utility drainage work which is taking place on the project.
If I may interrupt, City Manager, go back one, if it would, Ms. Cole. Yeah, City Manager, traversing through that intersection today, and it's a major change now that we're going from west to east. I would request maybe somebody take a look at the directional signs, which lanes go right, which lanes go left, because now we've got the center lane blocked, and there's a right and there's a left, but I didn't see any clear indications of signs saying you as a person, here's where I have to go, so maybe somebody take a look at putting up some signs.
And I'll work with our police and also to look at it, because we've had to do it just because as an engineer, they look at it one way, but as a pedestrian driving down it, it gets confusing, especially with the change. So we'll check it and also make sure that it's really clear which direction.
Yeah, thank you.
Most definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah. That traffic switch was actually made last week, and so we're fine tuning, everything. But thank you very much for bringing that to our attention.
Yeah, it's like a half a mile away. You're going like, well, I used to have to do this, and now I'm here and I'm doing this. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it's confusing.
No, it's just fun.
Yeah.
Thank you. Continue, please.
Okay, so one of the functions of our street division is to maintain the sidewalk infrastructure. And so we are currently working in the Marybrook Park neighborhood. We have completed installing infrastructure on Center Street, North Horn, Harrington Drive, and Marybrook Trail. We have remaining ADA ramps in this area, as well as small sidewalk sections on Melody and Membury. And so after these sections are completed, we'll move to Wheatland. Okay, let's look at performance indicators for the water utilities operations. So, as I indicated previously, we do have some vacancies in this area which have impacted our ability to timely perform secondary functions, such as exercising valves and replacing large meters. But I'm happy to report that during the second quarter of this fiscal year, we were able to pump 376 million gallons of water, which met all regulatory requirements.
Question. Back one. So when we're gallons of water lost flushing lines.
Yes, sir.
130, well, so we pumped what? 17 million gallons of water through lines, just flushing them out, cleaning them out. Do we pass the cost of that lost water on to our customers? Or is that absorbed by the city?
Actually, that cost is, customers don't have to pay for water lost in the system. But if you look at, supply, ultimately, we have to pay for the water, and we pay for the water because of, through water rates. So, but they do not directly pay for those water losses.
For the flushing.
Yeah, for the flushing.
That's what, well, yes, it's the clear distinction is that we have flushed 17 million gallons out, but we have not prorated the cost of those 17 million gallons to our citizens. That's being absorbed by funds somewhere. So our individual water rates aren't going to be going up as a result of $17 million in flushing water.
No, it won't be going up because of that. There are other.
No, just focus on this particular.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Mr. Contreras.
Come up to the.
Well,
he was talking from the.
Oh, Matt. Yes, Mr. Bryant.
Point out that 17.72 million gallons, that also includes leaks. So that's breaks that we go out and fix and stuff like that. So we're not intentionally dumping 17 million gallons of.
Oh, okay.
It's a fraction of that.
Oh. It's just, yeah, city manager and then Mr. Contreras. Yes.
Just to clarify what you just asked, there's two parts there, flushing and leaks. Leaks are different. So the process for a leak, if someone has a leak in their home and it's discovered, what we generally will do through utility billing, not through the Public Works Department, is if they can bring a receipt showing the repair of the leak, We then adjust their bill accordingly, but that is once it is repaired. And so generally, we try as much as we can to work with our customers once we receive the receipt of repair. And so that is how our policy works on that. We do get a chance to, we sometimes notice it based on a spike in the bill, and sometimes they notice it. In some cases, if we see it and someone has a large bill, they come to us, we will go out and reread it. And once we reread it again and find out that it is still higher, then at that point in time, our utility billing department will tell them that they need to bring a plumber out, and that plumber will then inspect, and if they repair it and give us a receipt for it, we do adjust the bill accordingly and look at averaging.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Contreras and Mr. Harvey.
For clarification, and I think you gave us the answer, but I want to be clear on this, that this 17.72 million of water loss from flushing and leaks, while it doesn't directly impact the consumers, it does in part contribute to the need for water rate increases. So it indirectly does affect everyone, but it's part of doing business.
That's correct. And then also one of the things that we're looking at are automated meters. And so we're looking at all of our unbilled water, whether or not, we're talking about customer leaks, whether or not we're talking about leaking pipelines, flushing activities. We're looking at all of that because we do need to address that.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Harvey.
Thank you, Mayor. Director Colton, this is piggybacking on what you had just mentioned a few moments ago about rates. It seems to me, as I recall, it is about the time of year in which our old employer, Dallas Water Utilities, would have done their cost of service study and meeting with the customer cities to talk about how much their rates are going to increase. So do you have a sense from your old contacts back at water distribution, customer cities or whatever they were called, which way the rates are going to go this year?
Actually, the water rates are going to go up by 5%. That's the proposal right now. But wastewater rates are going down by like 2%. So just, very minor changes. It's not what we anticipated. We're relieved that, it's not any worse than what it is.
Okay, it's a 5% increase to the city of Duncanville, not necessarily going to be reflected in a water rate
Mayor, can
increase.
I respond?
Okay, please do.
We are going to be bringing, we have been conducting a rate study as we promised, and we are planning to bring that back to you, I believe the first or second meeting in July, because our water rate is determined not only by the price that we pay for the water, but also by the repairs and the other capital. And so that process is well underway and almost complete. We hope to have brought it to you before then, but we are looking at the total cost of water, wastewater services, and Ms. Atmore has been, and Ms. Jennifer and Ms. Colton have been working on that, so that will be back to you shortly.
Thank you.
Oh, Mr. Harvey.
Yes, I'm sorry, Mayor, about that. So I was just thinking to myself that, we talked about the fact that the wastewater, the water ground storage tank turned out to be more than what we thought. And then, you couple with that the water loss, then it seems as if we're going to have some interesting challenges moving forward with setting the rates this coming year.
Yes, sir, it's going to be very interesting. We've all been hit, with rising construction costs and, supply chain issues and increased supply costs. So everything is going up.
Thank you. Please continue.
Okay, so at least twice a year, we host sanitation sponsored events where we collect household items. We also offer shredding. We provide information, education information to our residents. And the events are called like Operation Clean Duncanville, and then we have a hazardous waste collection event to keep those hazardous waste out of our sanitation stream, out of our landfills. And so this is actually a function under the Utilities Division. And it's a great event. We've got nothing but positive feedback from our residents because we've hosted these events. Okay, and so in the picture on the top right, you see our engineering manager, John McLean, and then we've got our graduate engineer, Kristen Logan, and then our executive assistant. And so also these events are by or under the direction of our assistant utilities superintendent, Mr. Dunn. Okay, so there have not been any change in our sanitation calls, complaints. We did see a slight spike in February during the ice storm. So the city has been conducting a sanitation survey, and that information will be provided to council in the near future. But we've had close to 3,000 folks to respond to the survey. Okay, so next up, our street and drainage maintenance group. So they have patched 100% of the potholes within 48 hours of notification, and that was 167. So they routinely inspect our drop inlets and drainage infrastructure to make sure that they're clean in order to prevent flooding events and to help the water move where it needs to move and not pond. And so one of the things that they do is after our utilities crew go in and make pipeline repairs, the street division comes back and they make the street repairs. So because there has been issue, it's been hard for us to hire and keep, that group fully staffed. They've fallen behind on their utility cut repairs. Okay, so Mr. Lowe provided an update on the state of the city vehicles, and this slide simply gives some of the statistics related to readiness. And so we've had issues also not only in obtaining new vehicles, but also maintaining the contractual services, to maintain the vehicles, but that is improved some. But these figures reflect the difficulty, we have experienced in getting the vehicles maintained. So we will be, identifying other ways of maintaining our vehicles, or additional ways, I should say, of maintaining our vehicles to make sure that we are able to keep our fleet rolling.
Okay.
Mr. Contreras.
It's a long night.
That's why I have help.
The noticeable thing on here is that our worst performance is in the area of fire apparatus, given the 72s and
Yes, sir.
70 and 68. Is there a particular reason why fire apparatus, exclusive of ambulances?
Well, actually, the vehicles that were down are old. We're talking 2011 and 2013. So, for instance, the fire apparatus is 2011, and we had a long laundry list of items that we needed to take care of to restore the vehicle to service, and it's anywhere from, you know, correcting an engine oil leak to repairing a seat belt alarm to problems with the doors of that particular vehicle. So it's primarily due to age.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any further questions from council? Looking over this information, Director Colton, I want to reiterate something I mentioned, I think it was meeting before last, about I was at a meeting and people were saying, you know, what's the most important position in the city? And I felt wrongly people said it's the mayor. I said correctly it's the Director of Public Works. And when you show the data in terms of what Public Works does, especially like fixing potholes, cleaning out drainage, that's what we as citizens encounter every day of what we do when we walk around and drive around our city. So thank you very much for what you and the entire Public Works staff do to keep our city and our infrastructure in such good shape. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate you all's support.
Thank you. That concludes item 6. We still have an executive session to undertake. That is shown as item 1. And so this reads, I will read it to get into the record. City Council shall convene into closed executive session pursuant to section 550.071 of the Texas Government Code to seek legal advice from city attorney regarding legal issue for city facilities, and section 551.076 of the Texas Government Code to deliberate the deployment and implementation of security personnel on devices for city facilities. So City Council, we will move from here into our briefing room. We will recess from here, and we will adjourn from the briefing room. So timestamp for recessing City Council is 10:33, City Secretary. Adjourning City. Thank you very much.